maybe this is just. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be, it'll pass. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Oh, yes. Yeah, I think I have it.
I know I do too. I always have it on my counter. Every 20 minutes.
When I don't have it.
Join now? Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Mike, can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:02. If everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda this evening is a presentation by Day Automation Company on LED lighting project.
Thank you. Pleased to be here tonight with all of you. Happy to know I can still tie. So I'm Steve Hazel. I'm the Energy Services Manager at Day, and go through a short presentation on the energy performance contract, give you an idea of what we found if we walk through buildings and some opportunities for you to do enhancements to the building. Also here with Wayne Anderson, some of you might know Wayne, he's an alum. And he's a county executive with Day as well. And we have some other team, we have a lot of other team members, but and as we're going through, if there's any questions, please just fire them at me. I do much better on a question and answer format. So a little bit about Day, if you're not familiar with who we are. We have 7 locations throughout New York State. We work with over 300 school districts in New York State doing building automation, security, network infrastructure, and energy services. So we're in many of the districts in the region, and schools, K-12 particularly, is our primary area of focus. So we know a lot about how your district runs and the issues that you face. So we think we're going to be uniquely qualified to put these proposed projects together. We have about 180 employees. I said we have 7 locations. Wayne and I happen to be out of this location, but we travel all over the state. So what we're here to talk about tonight is an energy performance contract, and that is what I do, what I've done for most of my career. Back in the early 90s, or in the mid-90s, New York State legislated the ability to do energy saving projects for public schools. In essentially 1994. And really what it is, it's an alternative means of funding building improvements with no cost impact to the district. And that's an important feature of the performance contracts. If you're not familiar with them, it really is a self-funded program that provides upgrades to the facilities, qualifies for aid. We're really targeted at how do we make the building environment better, but more energy efficient. Certain things often we don't need to be running. We'll go through a few of the things that we typically would do in a project like this. There are very stringent guidelines that stated that we have to comply with. So we're very familiar with those. We've gotten, the last few weeks, we've had 6 projects approved through state ed. So state ed is approving projects again, so that's good. And there are some multiple ways that we can fund the project. There's some typical ways that would happen through a capital lease or bond. So those are, it's very regimented on how these projects are put together. We bring all that to you and help you through that process. Important, it is state building aid eligible, so that just like the capital project, building aid is applicable to the project. So when we put together a project, we know what's able, what's not able. And we fill all the paperwork out for state and follow all that process. There are a lot of energy incentives out there right now. So either through the utilities or through the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. So we track those all the time, and I have a slide on that to go through that a little bit more. And important is, if you're looking at doing capital work, there's things that might qualify under the energy project that we could pull out of that capital project. So there's ways to coordinate that, and most of the projects we're doing right now are actually in conjunction with capital work, trying to free up dollars so you can do more in the capital project. One key aspect of a performance contract, unlike a capital project, is we don't do any change orders. There are no change orders allowed in a performance contract. So when we tell you, here's the scope of work that we're going to do, that's it. You're not getting hit with the $5,000 change orders and $10,000 change orders, which are inherent in the process for a capital project. But that is not allowed in the performance contract. So we think that's a big benefit to the district. And the real key element of it is performance and savings are guaranteed. So when we tell you this is how much it's going to save, we have to guarantee that. And if we miss by a few $1,000, $10,000, we have to make that up to you on an annual basis. Good news is the types of things we're talking about are pretty straightforward, and some of the savings are typically achieved. And there's a lot to this slide, but what I was trying to show here is when you do a traditional project, you have the cost of a capital project, and you have your annual energy costs, just like you have now. You're paying for gas and electric. The way a performance contract works is we take a piece of that annual energy cost. That green box is what we would guarantee. And we'll put numbers to these for you, further in the process. And then we generate the work that gets done. That's the energy saving upgrades. And in the case, if it's in conjunction with a capital project, if there's any overlap, and that's what I was talking about, we can move some of the cost out of the capital project into the performance contract. And that becomes the performance contract. So the savings pays for the upgrades and potentially relieves work from capital. So, and I was trying to show that we also qualify for state aid. So you get your aid rate on the capital project cost, but you can also get that plus the aid for the performance contract. So it's just all upside. And this gets a lot easier when we start talking about some examples, but just a snapshot of your district. We've gotten your utility bills and looked at the how you're spending those costs. And I believe that was last year's, probably the year before actually. Last year was kind of an odd year. But you're spending about $200,000 a year on utilities, which didn't surprise us. The chart we show is a benchmark chart. And without going into what all the numbers mean, the orange and the green are your electric use and your natural gas use. And when we benchmark those, we say, where are you compared to other districts, or where would we expect you to be? And for example, on the high school electric, you're at 15, the scale is BTUs per square foot. So it's how are you using energy in the building? Didn't surprise us, you're actually doing a very good job, but the yellow box is where we think we can get it to. So, and that represents about a 22% reduction in energy use overall for the district-wide. So we looked at it and said, you know what, is there any opportunity based on the benchmarks? We said, we think there is. And here's what we came up with. Again, we've done preliminary analysis. We've looked at the types of work that we could do. And we believe there's about a $1.3 million project that can be self-funded under the guidelines of the performance contract. And that's paid for out of $71,000 a year in annual energy and operational savings. And we combine those to say things like lighting. When we put in LED lights, which you have some already, LED lights last far longer than fluorescent or incandescent or anti-fluorescent, the things that we've been using up to this point. They have 50,000 run hours. So in 20 years, you probably won't replace more than a few of them. So instead of spending thousands of dollars a year on bulbs and ballasts, that is savings too. So we document all of that. Based on your rate, there's over $1 million in building aid that comes into play. I mentioned the energy incentives. There's, again, rough numbers, $60,000 to $100,000 worth of energy incentives, depending on what work we do. And those are very regimented as well. That we go to the utility, they have programs. If we change that light, we know what the rebate is on that light. And we apply for those on your behalf. And I assure the 18-year payback, that is one of the requirements of the project. The cost of the project divided by the savings of the project has to be 18 years or less. That is their primary requirement at SCADA. So we do all of that, the documentation and energy auditing to pull that together for you. And there's a lot more that goes into this and a lot more cash flows and things that we can provide. The types of things we almost always look at and what we believe are here. These pictures are just random pictures, they're not your facility. So it's really the lighting. Lighting is one of the big pieces. And even if you're home, I'm sure you're putting in LED bulbs, you're seeing the difference. And basically what we'll say is, other than theater lighting, because that's specialty lighting, house lights we would replace with LED. Anything that's not already LED, we would change to LED. It just makes such economic sense to do that. And then we look at all the controls that we're required to do when we put it in SCADA, and it has guidelines for what we have to do. And we'll go through all of the things, but the short version of it is, if it's not LED now, it would be LED. It should be LED when projects are done. Anything new you're doing on a capital project, you do LED, that's required. So that technology is very robust right now. Building control system, as I mentioned before, it really is keep the building condition where it absolutely has to be, but only where it has to be. Ventilate when you need to ventilate, which is very important these days. But don't overventilate. Don't be running everything you don't have to. Don't keep the building at temperature necessarily. Nobody's in it. So, but when the kids come in the morning, the building better be up to temperature and better be ventilated. That's important as part of it. I'll mention one of the things we do where we said generate a lot of savings is demand control ventilation. A room like this, if it's full, it needs more ventilation. If it's nobody in here, we can cut that back to minimum levels and generate a lot of savings from that. Units are designed typically for full ventilation, and they don't always control that way. So we look at those kinds of things. So I showed a picture of the door here. This was actual one of our customers, and we'll go in and put door seals in and cut all that infiltration. But there's even more hidden things. We have a lot of caulk, foam, insulation, anywhere we can stop air from infiltrating the building. Makes it more comfortable. So we do a lot of that. Some of it's not very exciting, but it generates a lot of savings. The other things are mechanical electrical improvements. So we can look at boilers, air handlers, any of the mechanical equipment in the building that can be done more efficiently. We look at and see if it can be included, or if it needs to be. You know, if your buildings are in pretty good shape, maybe there's just a few things that need to get added to make it better. And if you're interested in solar is becoming viable, even with the rates that you pay pretty good electric rates, low rates, but it still becomes something that really should be considered. Mentioned the energy incentives. There are so many incentives out there right now. There's money to audit the buildings, there's money to benchmark, there's money to do the work. And so we look at all of those programs and identify what's best financially for the district. We talked to the program managers of the incentive, and they sort of national grid, nice, we're talking to them every day. And we're getting, I think the number, we're up to like $5 million in incentives for our customers right now over the last few years. So a lot of money to be had out there if it's done right. Won't go through all this, but I would tell you this, the process you would follow is not all that different than your capital project with a few exceptions. You know, we've done a preliminary assessment. We're here to talk to you about it tonight. If you decide you want to proceed, there's a procurement process you go through for a request for proposal. Once you've officially selected a partner, then it kind of falls into a very traditional process. You do the audit, do the design, get it submitted to state ed, and all that goes along with that. You get finance and then under construction. And that typically will take, be a year from now, I would estimate that by the time you follow processes and go through all the things that we have to go through. That's a pretty typical process. And then we start to guarantee, once construction is done, we say, we're guaranteeing $71,000 a year. And we start tracking that, and we come every year report to you on whether it was achieved or not. And if it's not achieved, we're also coming back in and saying, what the heck is going on? And see if we can find ways to hit it the next year. So I'm going through this fast, but one of the other pieces we like to do, and are doing in a lot of places, is, we think we're good at what we do, but how do we engage students in this? How do we reach back and say, you know what, we want to inspire some kids to come into our industry or engage with some of the technology, and we're doing some pretty interesting things. I was just yesterday with two customers going through VR and AR curriculum, so virtual reality and augmented reality, where we can take like an engine and virtually lay it on a table, and the kids can take it apart virtually. They can take the engine apart, or they can, if they're into art, they can take the Lincoln's mask from the mat that's been scanned by one of our partners, and they can play with it, look at it, understand it, incorporate that into the curriculum with the teachers. So many things that we've done, and I can talk about that part of it for a long time, because I'm very active in that, and we're strong passion for that. But a lot of things we do to support the district, not just with our core competence. So that's a real quick overview. I mean, it really is, the project can be, the improvements are self-funded. We have the process that we would follow, walk you through that, and if you're interested in proceeding, then we can help you through that. It really is, how do we just make the place more energy efficient and improve the environment for students and teachers? Questions?
You mentioned payback. Actually, our lives are investments. Actually, said 18 years, and the period has to be something that 18 years you just haven't finished 18. Is there a way to have that payback quicker?
There is. It gets a little, there's two requirements that say. One is the 18-year, you can't exceed the 18-year payback. And in private industry, you wouldn't do it if it was an 18-year payback, most likely. but because of the way the projects are funded through the state, aid is applied to that, and payback, when you consider aid, is probably more like 2 to 3 years. So the other criteria is that we can't cost you any money on an annual basis. So when we put the cash flows together, the savings, aid, cost of the program have to be 0 or better. And typically they're, I've done the math for this one, I don't know off the top of my head, but you're probably generating positive cash flow back to the district of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year. So schools are kind of a unique animal when it comes to how the funding works for a project.
I have one question. You mentioned a series of incentives which are available, and that's built into the project, which we're assuming will happen. What if state ed were to reject them, or private sector would reject that? That wouldn't cost us money, would it?
No, so the way the process would work is if you went ahead and say, well, use us, you select us to go ahead and do the energy audit, then we come back to you again, we stand here and go through the project and say, you know what, it's lighting, it's controls, it's transformers, it's here, all the things that it is. And we've done enough of these that we're gonna get it through state. We're not bid work, because we know not to submit things that they're not going to approve. If for whatever reason you decided not to go ahead with the project, at that point, we all just part friends. There's no cost. And inevitably, the state ed will make some minor changes, just like they would on a capital project, but they usually are pretty minor.
So we'll never be caught in the middle.
You'll never be caught in that.
And then one other thing, you mentioned the change orders,
Yes.
and there's no change orders. What if a bid or a project, a work phase comes in less than what we expected? We won't get that savings? If there's no change order, if it was a higher amount, we pay.
Correct.
If there's less, would we get that back?
I know exactly how to answer that question. Not the first time I've heard that question. So the process also requires us to have signed contracts with you prior to submitting. So all of our bidding happens before we submit the project to state ed, so we know what the exact numbers are. We have the scope of work, and then we change, if there's any changes at state ed, we make the adjustments. But so one of the differences is because we're on the hook for the guarantee, we get to do invited bidders. We get to go work with companies that we want to work with, that have experience with us, that we know are going to get the work done. So you don't have to go through the little bid process of a traditional project. But we want bidding still, so we want good prices, so we can go to multiple qualified bidders.
Thank you.
So we know those numbers.
Yeah.
When you sign a contract, you know exactly what it's gonna be. No surprises.
Speaking of bidding, I'm just curious, how many bids have we received so far for this contract?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Can you just repeat this question so that the.
Oh, sure. Just ask them how many.
That's to the board, that's just to you, sir. I'm just curious, how many bids have we had for this particular contract to do all of this work?
The question was, how many bids have there been for
This contract.
this contract?
That's correct.
Right. This is, I can answer that question. This is information session tonight only. We've had no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any bids scheduled at this point, or just a fact on this?
Yeah, this is, I'm sorry.
John?
So I think as the presentation presented, if we decide to go forward with an energy performance contract, we would have to do a request for proposal, and then other companies could come forward and present it to the board.
Yeah, this is to educate and see if there's interest.
I do have a question. So if we did go in that process and we put out the request for proposals and we had 3 or 4 companies, is it the board's responsibility then to approve which company we're going to go with, or does it, as a capital project, does it have to go out for voters' approval?
It's the board's responsibility.
So that's different than a capital project.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
We would put it to the voters still to get enhanced building ratio. But we can pick the company, and then our traditional regular building aid ratio is about 79%. If the community approved it, it would be 89%. So that was one of the caveats the state.
Works, so. But we also work with the architect and engineer, so this wouldn't be us just coming in and saying, "I'm here." We work with your other professionals to put the project together. Actually, we're required to, so.
Right. But this would be kind of between the capital project that we've started discussion on and this energy performance contract, they're kind of separate from each other, are they? They're not linked together.
Right.
I mean, he showed how the state aid would still come together, but process-wise, they're kind of separate.
But they complement each other.
They complement each other. Okay,
For
thank you.
example, if you're renovating a classroom, we don't want to go in and change the lighting in that room, then the capital project comes and rips it all out. So we make sure we're coordinated on those kinds of things.
Because when we had that presentation for the capital project, part of it was lighting and upgrading this, but this could take care of that part of the capital project.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We said we're working on, I think, 17 projects right now. 16 of them are in conjunction with capital projects, so we get pretty good at coordinating these things. Doesn't mean we don't argue about them once in a while.
Where are you located?
We're based out of Syracuse, so we said
So this is a local job for you.
it is. But I travel all over the state, so this is home.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
Great job.
We're going to slightly modify the agenda this evening. We will get to everything. I'm sorry.
I'll let Charlie
Oh.
explain, do a presentation on the federal funds.
Oh, I apologize, Chair.
That's okay. You guys have your mic.
No, I didn't turn it on. I apologize. Do you want me to turn it on now or wait?
You guys are.
I should have clicked it.
We just have Mike Sacco, one of our board members, is on this board meeting right now. We announced it on our website, but he is on vacation, but he wanted to be a part of this meeting. So it's kind of why we have mics, why we have computers up here, trying to make sure we can link him in and he can be a part of this meeting. So as much as we can try to do, we're going to do through mics. So please bear with us, but thank you.
Sorry, Charlie.
No problem. This is very brief. With the funding that we're receiving from the federal government, one of the requirements is that we discuss with the board a plan that we have to present to the board, a plan that we have for the use of the funds. So this is 3 or 4 slides, but I'll just quickly go over some numbers for the Board of Education. You do have this in front of you as well, a hard copy. It's easier to look at it there. So there have been 3 sources of funding from the federal government as a result of relief from the pandemic. The first was the CARES Act of April of 2020, a year ago. We received $185,000. When we received that money, the state budget for the 2021 school year was still being developed. So when New York State realized the amount of money the school districts were receiving, they basically reduced the funding that they would provide to school districts. In our case, $185,000. So that really just backfilled some funding that would have normally come from New York State and helped support our programs for the school year that just finished. Second is the Corona Relief Act of December of 2021. We had received an allocation of $918,000 for that, and that will be used over the next 3 years to help us fund some of our current programs. As we were doing our budget development, I know the board was concerned and interested in how we would address our low fund balance number in comparison to other school districts in the area. And some of that will be used from that funding in that December of 2021 allocation to Sauquoit Valley School District. But the piece that we need to talk about is the most recent funding that was approved in the American Rescue Plan in March of 2021. Our total allocation is those two numbers, the $1,252,000 and then another $700,000. And $700,000 we have not yet received guidance on, but that has been separated out and has to address learning loss issues that occurred in the school districts as a result of the pandemic. And again, that really has to be spent over the next 3 years. At this point, the $1,252,000 is what we need to put a plan for and have a grant application into the state by August 31st. So we worked with the principals and our personnel service director and the superintendent and came up with the allocation of that. Before I get to that, actually, the $1,252,000 has one other requirement within it, that $250,000 of that has to be used for learning loss as well. So of that $1,252,000, we do have to use $250,000 to address learning loss issues, which is not an issue, not difficult to attain for our grant purposes. But what we talked about with the principals and administration and them in turn with the staff, these are some of the items that we would look to fund over the next 3 years with these grant proceeds. The top line is a couple of reading teachers that would continue. We had 2 in the elementary school. These 2 would serve our middle school, so it kind of extends our Title I programming to the 5-8 grade levels. We've also got an additional guidance individual, and I won't get into much of discussing, what specifically these individuals will be addressing. If there are questions about them, I'll leave that to the superintendent or the building principals to review. But and then the third thing there is additional staff. We're looking at having at least one staff member, instructional staff member, who could be here to assist with any students that may be doing some of their learning remotely during the 21-22 school year, as well as serve as an individual who could be available for substitute purposes. Professional development, we expand that to into the 21-22 school year and beyond. You can see there's some reading materials, community school services programs that are now available through BOCES that we would include, and some furniture and equipment that would be purchased to renovate or make a learning space more usable here at the high school, in the high school library. And then at the bottom, you can see in addition to all of that is about $169,000 annually, which would be used to maintain current programming. And again, that would help address our fund balance issues that Sauquoit has experienced in recent years. So we're hoping between this funding and the CRSA funding that was available made available in December of 2020, we would be able to improve our fund balance position fairly significantly. Now, some of that obviously depends upon the rest of the results for the school district. If there are unanticipated expenditures that come up, that will eat into some of this planned savings that would be distributed or deposited into fund balance. But at this time, if everything were to happen as expected, we'd be putting about $170,000 a year into fund balance from this $1.2 million. So that's really the presentation. As I said, it was reviewed with the building principals and the PPS director. It's due August 31st. As we get further into this and there's more guidance, we will continue to discuss it, I think, internally. And it seems that the application process that used to be very easily approved at the SCD level, especially when we're looking at these new federal programs, they're looking at things with a fine-tooth comb, so there will likely be some back and forth between the school district and SCD to make sure that we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed before they do approve this grant. But the funding is there for us, and we're moving forward with the application process at this time. So any questions from the board?
Charlie, any category that we'll get aided back on? Shared service aid? Anything?
My understanding is, and I think that's still an open question, Tony, is that if we use federal funds, even for BOCES programs or for the purchase of anything, there's hardware aids or different aids that some expenditures are eligible for. But if we use federal funds, And that's counted as the aid towards it. We don't get to double dip, as the term that's often used in the school world, you know, and say, give us this money as aid and then give us a BOCES aid or other hardware or something right now. So I don't expect we'll see that.
Those work for him.
Absolutely. If it's available, we'll do it.
Thank you.
So you're projecting 170,000 for, I don't know about you.
Say 168 right around there now.
Right, that's what the bottom line is here,
Yeah, that last number.
maintenance of current programs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Sure, if you want to, just.
I saw in the plan that you had funding for additional staff member for 1 year. So once that 1 year is up, how do you plan to fund, or do you plan on to just let that person know it's a 1 year additional contract?
Great question. We would, the 1 year position is we have there's a shortage in the workforce. And most of you know that in private places you work. We're no different here at schools. We have difficulties finding subs. I mean, last year, the principals and their building secretaries and their staff all scrambled to get subs and to fill voids. We were looking to use one of these positions to help with that, to know that there's a consistent need. And we also know part of that learning loss, having that person available. If they don't have to cover for a whole classroom, we can use them in other spots to support student learning. So that's what we're looking to do. That is something, and it's great. The biggest difficulty with grant funding is sustainability. And so we have a window of opportunity for a couple of years here. The issue is going to be when those couple of years are up, how is the state going to continue to finance education in New York State? Now, this year they stepped up to the plate a little bit better than where they have been in the past, due to federal monies, I think, or to know that we had federal monies coming. And they did it somewhat with a promise that there would be support in ongoing years. And if that is true, that's still not going to be enough support to support everything that we have on here. That's just impossible to do. So, we look at those reading teachers up. We at the top, that's 2 teachers. We're basing them right out of the middle school and basically extending what we have as Title I services for Title I reading in elementary school. And extending that with reading teachers, providing direct reading instruction at the middle school, especially in the 5th and 6th grade. Again, that's going to help a need we have right in front of us that was certainly expanded last year, or starting from the March prior, when we've been dealing with the pandemic. So that's going to help address those needs. As far as sustaining those teachers, it will be great if we can keep those in those capacities. If not, maybe one would stay in that capacity, and through attrition, both people we've hired are also childhood education certified, grades 1 through 6. If we have a retirement in those grade levels, we can retain those teachers if we feel that retaining them is what we want to do. So there is some flexibility with that, at least to retain maybe the people. If they're doing a good job, we certainly want to retain those people. It may just not look like in the way that we have it presented right here. It all depends on what we're able to sustain. Yes.
That additional staff position, is that just one person?
That is one person. It would be a certified teacher. We just don't have that person yet. That's even difficult. Of course, it's not a great selling point to say, would you come here and work for 1 year? With no guarantees beyond that. If it's somebody that's like, well, I have nothing right now, my other option is subbing, I can get a full-time job at least for 1 year. So it could be, it's going to take the right situation, which we thought maybe we had, and we lost a good one that we had last year helping us, but we'll have to find somebody else. Okay.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, as I started to say earlier, we're going to modify the agenda slightly this evening. We will get to everything on the agenda. We just wanted to make room and give everyone the opportunity who is here this evening to speak if they wanted to. So right now, we're going to move on to item 6, which is Board of Education Subcommittee reports.
And we have no reports on that tonight.
Thank you. Next, we'll be moving on to item 9, which is new business. I'll read 9.1 to 9.24 as a consent agenda. If anyone has any questions or would like anything pulled for further discussion, please let me know. 9.1, appointment of transportation supervisor. 9.2, appointment of teacher aide. 9.3, appointment of long-term substitute teacher. 9.4, appointment of reading teacher. 9.5, appointment of substitute teacher. 9.6, appointment of teacher aide. 9.7, appointment of substitute teacher. 9.8, appointment of custodian bus driver. 9.9, leave of absence. 9.10, leave of absence. 9.11, appointment of bus driver. 9.12, resignation. 9.13, donations. 9.14, parent transportation contract. 9.15, approval of agreement with Small Blessings Preschool. 9.16, approval of lease agreement. 9.17, sport combination. 9.18, athletic appointment. 9.19, additional extracurricular. 9.20, confirm tax rolls and authorize tax levy. 9.21, execute tax warrant. 9.22, budget transfer. 9.23, auction approval. 9.24, resolution authorizing commencement of e-cigarettes and vaping litigation. 9.25, treasurer's report. 9.26, resolution authorizing payment of bills approved by the claims auditor dated August 3rd, 2021. 9.27, approval of minutes of the July 27, 2021 meeting. And 9.28, committee on special education. Does anyone have any questions or would like anything pulled for further discussion?
I just want to make sure that I heard it correctly, but I thought 9.11, I thought I heard bus driver, but it is actually a bus dispatcher.
Dispatcher, thank you.
Yeah, I thought so.
Thank you.
9.12,
Can I have that pulled?
please.
Okay. Anyone else have anything pulled? All right. I will need a motion to approve 9.1 to 9.24 with the exclusion of 9.12.
So moved.
Todd, need a second, please?
Second.
Tony? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mike was in favor.
Oh, Mike,
Yep.
apologize.
Thank you, sir.
Okay then. I will need a motion to open discussion on 9.12.
So moved.
Tony, I need a second, please.
Second.
Rob?
Yep.
Okay. All right, Tony, go ahead.
I would just like to take a moment to thank Sue Sanderson for her years of service. I know she's leaving during some very difficult times in her family, and I'd like to thank her for her service over the years that she gave to us.
I would concur with that, Tony. I know she came to us, she worked actually in our district, but as a BOCES employee at first, and then we were able to hire her as a teacher aide, and then expand some of her services as a teacher aide through the years that she was here. And as Tony said, it's unfortunate circumstances in which she has to step down, but for the years that she was here, was an outstanding employee, and was certainly, like many of our teacher aides, they're always willing to step in and help. Where do you need me or fill in? And last year certainly was a year where everybody had to do that. And Sue is no exception. We wish her well and her family well.
Thank you, Ron.
Any further discussion on 9.12? Okay. All those in favor to approve 9.12?
So moved.
So moved. Or in favor.
Any opposed?
Mike,
Mike?
approve.
Okay. All right.
Doing well.
Next, we will move on to miscellaneous topics.
do we have an update on the approval we gave at the beginning of the summer regarding the NFHS networks and the Pixel Lock cameras? Do we have any update on those?
Good question. I do not. I know it's in the motions. I know we were running some of the wire to prepare for them to come here. But I don't believe the cameras have been installed yet, and I don't know the exact date when they are.
That's an update.
Thank you. All right.
I appreciate it.
Any other miscellaneous topics? Okay, all right then. Next, we'll move on to public to be heard. And I just want to make a few comments first. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I just want to let you know that your feedback during this section of the meeting is very important to the board, and we welcome your comments. Just please be cognizant of the fact that it's not a public debate, so just listen openly and honestly and be respectful to everyone's comments. And when you do come up to the mic to make a comment, if you could just kindly state your name for the record, introduce yourself, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes, we would appreciate it. So at this point, I'll open the floor for public to be heard.
Nathan Hanna. Nathan Hanna. I spoke at the last board meeting on a topic that's been quite widely discussed in the community and has come to our attention as parents, and that has to do with the document that's been circulating around regarding culturally responsive sustaining education, also known outside of the framework as critical race theory. In regards to that, this isn't the first time that has cropped up. As a matter of fact, last year in March during freshman seminar, some of that element spilled over into freshman seminar, whether the board is aware of that or not. So that's where I would like to begin with in regards to this, because we should not have these type of policies being brought in from outside sources.
Can everybody hear me if I just speak from the front?
No. All right, so again, starting with that. One of the first things I want to do is talk about this. This was an initiative brought down by the New York State Ed. It's an initiative, it's not curriculum, and my concern is, and many people in the community is, we don't want it folded into curriculum. I know when I asked the question, it was under review and asked for feedback, if I'm not mistaken, correct? They were asking for some feedback from the superintendents of local schools, right? Okay. This here is a quote from one of the authors of their framework that helped build this document. Schools adhere to ideas of what is correct, the way to act, to learn, and communicate. They institutionalize these ideas through school policies, teaching choices, and curricula. But these norms are not neutral or arbitrary. They mirror the norms that allow society's justification for why certain groups, such as white, middle class, and cisgender people, accumulate privilege, while other groups, such as Black, trans, and disabled people, accumulate vulnerability. When schools establish norms that uphold privilege and vulnerability, they yield inequitable outcomes. Job of the school board. The school board is responsible for setting vision and goals for the district, and is the superintendent who implements these policies. It's not the job of the board to micromanage them, but it is the job of the school board to create the vision and to help educate the students, okay? That's the key. This document, which was circulated around and I spoke about, empowers students as agents of social change. What does that have to do with educating our students? What kind of legacy do we want to leave behind as a school board? Do we want to talk about that? You know, our schools are for education, for providing proficiencies in reading, speaking, writing, math, science, language. As I said last time, the big push in our economy is for STEM. I don't know of anybody who has a privilege. You know, a privilege defined as a right, an advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. Have any of us experienced that? Do I have privilege? You have privilege. You work, you get your degrees, you put 40, 60 hours a week in. These are the things that we need to instill in our kids. Respect for authority, respect for our board, respect for our superintendent, just like we are going to do tonight with our voices and our concern. But when it comes to this type of stuff regarding critical race theory and culturally responsive education in the school systems, that's not what it's about. The document politicizes education and promotes ideology through education. This is not good. Again, I'm going to keep it short, within the 5 minutes, and let everybody know. This document, again, contained 28 references to race, 15 to justice, 45 to social, 13 to agent, 37 to racial. Change was 12, 11 times followed by social. Does that sound like a document that's focused on educating, teaching our children, helping our community raise itself up? Absolutely not. Again, I thank you for your time, and I want the board to think about what is the vision that you have for this school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hannah.
Good evening, my name is Carrie Tibbetts, and I have 3 children entering grades 11th, 7th, and 2nd grade this year. I am here tonight because I saw the agenda that the reopening plan was going to be discussed. Last year, we were given the opportunity to review the plan, but this year, since it was not mandated by the state, it seemed as though public input was not afforded that luxury this year. As someone who works in state government, I also know 9 times out of 10, your decision on how you're going to vote is already made beforehand. But sometimes that vote can be changed by advocates who voice their concerns. Just like I've seen some of you in Albany advocating for less mandates from the state, because as you state, you know what is best for your district. I am here to advocate for my children, because I believe I know what is best for my children. I'm under the assumption that you'll be following the New York State Education, or NISA, we like to use a lot of letters in Albany, reopening guidelines, in which states that you should follow the CDC and AAP guidelines. The first recommendation is both the CDC and AAP guidelines is vaccinations. I'm not going to get into that. The CDC also, in both the AAP guidelines, the second one is universal mask mandates. The CD states that when teachers, staff, and students constantly and correctly wear a mask, they protect others as well as themselves. Consistent and correct mask use is especially important indoors and in crowded settings when physical distancing cannot be maintained. Since you will be probably following these mask recommendations put forth by the CDC, I'm wondering if each of you will be responsible for each student and staff member to ensure that masks are being worn correctly, or who will be responsible. Now, I love to look at reports because this is what I do all day for work, but this is your guide from the CDC to masks. The first one is to have 2 or more layers of washable, breathable fabric. This is a mask my son wore from November on. Basically, every single mask was like this. It has a hole in it because he chews through 2 layers of fabric each and every single day. By November, I got sick of replacing these and washed them and just sent them in as it was. So obviously, they were at the time when there was mandates, and we had state of emergencies, as declared by the governor, that these masks were never checked. So that is my concern. Also, to completely cover your nose and mouth. Fit snugly against the sides of your face and don't have gaps. Have a nose wire to prevent air from leaking out of the top and out of the mask. So I ask, as we have temperature checks every morning, who will be inspecting each child as they enter the building and throughout the day? Gaiters and face shields, you can wear a gaiter, but it has to be 2 layers. And face shields are not recommended because the effectiveness is unknown at this time. For children, you should find a mask that is made for children to ensure the proper fit. And then how to wear it. Wear a mask correctly and consistency for the best protection. Be sure to wash your hands or use hand sanitizer before putting on the mask. And ask how are you going to make sure that each child has washed or hand sanitized their hands before they put it on to school. Do not touch the mask when wearing it. Not is in big bold letters. If you have to often adjust or touch your mask, it does not fit properly. What are you going to do? What is they going to do every time a student touches their mask, or even faculty, because I've seen people adjust their masks all the time. So to put on a new mask, that you have to then, again, hand sanitize and put on a new mask. And how to take off a mask. So if we're letting our kids take off the mask at lunch, carefully untie the strings or behind or the ear loops instructed. Handle one only by the ear loops or ties. Hold the corners together. Be careful not to touch your eyes, nose, and mouth when removing, and wash hands immediately after removing your mask. So at lunchtime, when kids are allowed to remove their masks, are we going to make sure that their hands are washed before and after to ensure that their masks are clean? Will this be monitored at mask breaks or any time that they're outside and returning? You know, it shows how to properly restore them. How are we going to ensure that they're properly cleaned at home? So those are my biggest concerns about the mask mandates from the recommendations from the CDC. So my question is, if you can't enforce the mandates you're putting forward, what good are they going to be? So I'm asking you to please do the right thing and leave the choice to the parents who are your constituents that voted for you to represent what they need and want. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jerry Twicke. I have two children in Sauquoit Valley, and I'm here to provide my perspective.
Excuse me, Mr. Twiggy, could you just step forward just a tad? Yeah, there you go.
I don't think it's
not
that
on.
No,
No, we'll fix it for you.
Just click that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just don't want feedback.
There you go. Thank you.
I'm here to provide my perspective on two topics: how our children can safely return to school this fall, and the culturally responsive sustaining education framework. I believe that Sauquoit Valley schools were exceptionally successful in bringing students back to school for in-person learning this past year. My children attended the majority of their school year in person. This was directly attributable to the planning and coordination from the Board of Education and the District COVID Task Force. Mr. Putnam can attest I had concerns and questions about the reopening plan, about the safety of my children, and about the practicality of wearing a mask to prevent transmission. There were challenges with the plan, with physical distancing, daily temperatures, quarantines, and mask wearing. But my children were in school, in person, learning from their teachers. My children went through the school year without catching a cold. What more proof did I need that physical distancing, hand sanitizing, and mask wearing works to combat the transmission of viruses? One of my children had a 4-day-a-week speech IEP. My child was able to work through the challenges of mask wearing to where they no longer have a speech IEP in the upcoming year. The plan was a success. In planning for the next school year, the coronavirus continues to evolve while preventative measures are becoming politicized. The current guidance from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, American Academy of Pediatrics, New York State Education Department, and local pediatricians all state that students and school employees should continue to wear a mask indoors and get vaccinated if they're eligible. I trust in the science and the information provided to me by medical professionals that have spent years studying communicable diseases. I trust that the district was sending my children to school for in-person education last year, and I hope I can trust the district to protect my children by following the guidance to wear a mask indoors this year. The second topic I would like to speak to is the Crs Framework. The mission statement for the Sauquoit Valley School District is to educate all children in the district and to prepare them to be successful in life. It states this is done through fostering collaboration, by providing a safe, secure, nurturing environment with an emphasis on responsibility, honesty, integrity, and respect for others. That the district believes in nurturing individual talents, skills, and abilities of students and promoting a desire for continued learning through diverse academic and extracurricular programs. The district believes that a competent, qualified, and dedicated staff engaged in lifelong learning supported through ongoing professional development opportunities, are crucial to the success of all students. That the Sauquoit Valley School District is a catalyst for unifying the diverse communities of our district through an ever-changing world. Pulled from your policies. The Sauquoit Valley Strategic Plan lists 3 goals. The first is to provide opportunities, resources, and support to engage each student academically with the focus of exceeding district and state standards, while also ensuring that each student maximizes their abilities. The second is to engage a student's curiosity, interest, and passion for learning using various strategies to affect their intellectual, physical, social, and emotional well-being. The third is to provide rich, meaningful opportunities for civic learning and democratic engagement throughout the district, combined with enhancing the well-being of each student to foster community responsibility. It states that the district will not engage in a program or service that is not consistent with the mission or these goals. The CRS Framework has its foundations built upon the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Draft Framework the Board of Regents published this past spring. The CRS, as it is written, is, quote, intended to help education stakeholders create student-centered learning environments that affirm cultural identities, foster positive academic outcomes, develop student abilities to connect lines of difference, elevate historically marginalized voices, empower students as agents of social change, and contribute to individual student engagement, learning, growth, and achievement through the cultivation of critical thinking, end quote. Through the cultivation of critical thinking. Not in any of the district policies did I find that education should be limited to math, reading, and science. Instead, I found overlaps between the district policies and the CRS framework, language about critical thinking, nurturing individual talents, and respect for others. The Sauquoit Valley School District strives for excellence in areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion without applying the DEI labels. The Positivity Project that Mr. Putnam started teaches elementary school students concepts of inclusiveness through character strengths, how to build thoughts, feelings, and actions to develop a strong moral character. The Positivity Project teaches elementary students how to be inclusive. Inclusive thinking is critical thinking. Take away the labels, the political connotations, the word search to say how many times the word race or racial change occurs in the framework, and actually read the framework in the district policies, and you will find what I have found. All the documents, all of the ideals overlap. If we truly want to support our students, to prepare them to be the most prepared they can be for their lives after graduation, then we need to acknowledge that the world looks different than the Sauquoit Valley. That within our district there exist economic and demographic differences that impact the accessibility to technology, food, and housing. That these same differences and more exist beyond the school district borders. That words like inclusion, diversity, and equity have a vastly different meaning than lipstick on a pig. The CRS framework is a supporting document to the district's plans and goals to prepare our children and students to be able to analyze information and think critically. The CRS framework is consistent with the mission and goals of the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Nicole. Is it not
I don't think it's on.
You just click on the
Hit
tab.
that button.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, my first question, are we allowed to ask questions or we're just talking? So is the mask mandate set? Are we, for the children, are they going to be wearing masks this upcoming year?
We're
Oh, that's what was my question.
here to hear your input,
No,
so
that's
that
fine.
when we get to discussion later,
Okay.
we have heard what you have to say.
Okay, I didn't have anything written, and I'm not debating with, what the gentleman just said, I'm just, one of the points that he just said was that the kids didn't get any colds. I actually don't think that actually is a good thing. I think children need to build their immunity, or immune system. I'm not sure if it's because of the masks and Sauquoit did do a good job of, last year, but they weren't in school a lot. They did wear masks, they were socially distanced, but I don't think that that's a way that the world should be run. And there's no proof of the future of physical and mental, what it's doing to the children. And I'm not gonna get into the science of that, but I would like to see the science for children of how it's Sorry, I'm a little nervous, obviously.
You're doing great.
Yeah, but I do want to see the science of the children, how it's helping them not get this disease, because I don't think, if anybody wants to come up, but the effect of children is minimal, and I think we all know at this point what the coronavirus is, and I'm just here for my 2 children and my 2 nieces, and I'm just here to say that I don't think that masking our children is the best thing for them, and I would like to see some studies from anyone to see that it's not physically and mentally affecting them. So just would like somebody to put that in their heads when making the decision.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Crs Freeman. I've got 1 daughter in the district, and I've got 3 nieces. And I want to speak about the mask. I have worked at a couple different industries where I'm required to wear a mask for work. One is the powdered metal industry, which, if you don't know anything about it, it's taking metal and turning it into a powder much like flour. And what we're required to wear for a mask for that is a very extremely high filtration mask. We have to change our cartridges once a week. The coronavirus, if you do your research, is much smaller than a particle of powdered metal. What you consider safe for masks, the blue masks, the cotton fiber masks, will not protect you. It's too small. The only mask out there that is available to everybody easily is the N95. And that will barely protect you. The coronavirus has a micron between 0.06 and 0.014. Most masks will do about 1.0. Then let's go to the immune system. The only way we build an immunity to anything is by being subjected to it. Whether it's a cold, the flu, like we'll take the cold, the common cold. How many variations of the common cold are there? Thousands. That's why you can get a cold every year, but you never get the same cold. I don't believe it's good for our children to be masked. It's not good for our immune systems, and I don't know about the rest of the parents in here. I know my children have been interacting with children all summer. At camp, the local lake chalet, swimming, playing on the playground. My child has not gotten sick. Now, personally, I did have COVID before we even realized it was a problem here. My doctor couldn't tell me what was wrong with me. And I'm not gonna lie, yeah, it knocked me on my butt for a couple of weeks. Excuse my French. But in the end, I recovered. I'm here, I'm standing, I'm living. And I don't think we need to continually put our children in fear every day. Think about if you were children. How would you feel every day having to wear a mask? How would that make you feel? How do you look at other people? We're teaching our children to be scared. And that's not what we need. We need to teach our children to be strong, to be healthy, to eat right, and washing our hands is important. You know, teaching them how to sneeze and cough properly. I watched a teacher show my child the cough in her hand. I looked at the teacher, I'm like, what are you doing? You don't do that. You teach them to cough into their elbow. Because you cough in your hand, what do you do? Oh, hi, how you doing? That's about it. I know I'm not a great speaker, but I want to voice my opinion. Thank you.
You did a great job.
Hi, my name's Carl Planty. Last time I was here, I asked Mr. Putnam where the decision was made about wearing masks in school, whether it was a federal, state, county, local. I'm here again to ask that question of where is that decision going to be made? Because last time, I think the decision was known, but the case was punted. So was that decision being made here?
Yeah, we will be discussing this after we hear the public. The board will have
I
a
understand
chance to weigh in.
But is it going to be made by the state or is it going to be what we look
we will discuss that during a little later on. Sorry, this is just your time to share with us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michelle Crow. I have 2 daughters in the district. I spoke last time. And we're against the mask mandate, but I do feel everybody should have a choice. And I read in the proposal that they're going to be taking disciplinary action on my kids if they don't wear a mask. Go ahead, send them home every day. You can call me, come pick them up, but they're not going to be wearing a mask. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Robin Sullivan. I have 4 kids, some of which I have one in middle school, one in elementary, one that'll be in the small blessings pre-K. First off, I just want to say thank you to all the parents that came out today. This turnout is significantly more than it was last time, and I think that if we all continue to turn out and speak our minds and let our voices be heard, that change will come. Also, along with Michelle, I did read the plan, the safety plan for the upcoming reopening of the school district. And the fact that masks are going to be required for entry into the building. And I do know that via social media, I have read that in Clinton School District, when parents asked the school board, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when we send our kids to school with no masks? And the Clinton School Board's response was to turn them away at the parking lot. And I have to say that I'm with Michelle. Give me a phone call because my kids aren't coming to school in a mask. And furthermore, the gentleman's question of who's making this decision, I can tell you right now who's making this decision. The parents are making this decision. These are our children that we're sending to this school, to your school. And we have chosen to send them to your school. We are taxpayers. We voted you into these positions so that you can make these choices for what's best for our children. And if you can't make those decisions based on all of the parents that are here and giving our input and telling you we do not want mask mandates, then there is something wrong with you. There is something wrong with the board. And we as parents who elected these officials in need to be looking in the bylaws and get these people out and get people in here who's gonna be speaking for what's best for our children. Whether it be mask mandates, whether it be critical race theory or diversity inclusion or whatever we wanna call it. If it quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's a duck, okay? So basically what I wanna say is I would like to make a motion to change the verbiage of your school's opening plan to be, instead of required masks, to be recommended masks. Because the CDC recommends it, the AAP recommends it, all the pediatricians recommend it, but you guys are the ones that decide if it's required or recommended. Because if it's recommended, then the parents have the decision. And that's all we're asking for, is a choice.
Excuse me. I have someone here who would like to speak. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Melissa Shirillo. Basically everything that she had just said, I just want to advocate for family choice. You know, I think there's a lot of us who feel that they want their child to be masked, and that's okay. If you feel that based on all the information and all of the data and talking with your doctor, that you feel the best thing for your child is to come to school masked, then that's fine. I respect that, and I think all the parents here do as well. But I want to also say, we should also, based on all of the data that's out there and everything, have the right to say, no, I don't want my child to come to school masked. I had young children, or I had a daughter in school, and my nephew's in school, and they're young, they're going into kindergarten. They need to have their faces free to talk, to socialize, development for all ages. It's so important, and I read the plan as well, and I just want to basically say I thought it was very sad and it made me upset, because just thinking of my daughter sitting there all day with a mask on, 6 feet apart from her friends, in an individual seat in the cafeteria, you know, at this point, I think it's a good thing how much we know about the virus. Yes, you can get sick and get a virus, and I'm not saying that I want anyone to get sick. You know, you have to use the best judgment that you can as a parent for your child. So if you think, based on everything, like I said, that we know now in the virus that you want to send your child to school without a mask, we should have that choice. And I think it upsets a lot of us that we feel as if it's getting taken away from us, because we know our child better than anyone, anyone else. And I just, hopefully we can consider this when making the decision. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Katera. I'm a resident of Sauquoit Valley High School. My son just graduated. Just wanted to speak to the community, and I love the board. I can't say enough great things about our board. My son just graduated, and I could not be happier. As far as community health is concerned, this is an emergency. This is a pandemic. I also want to say that I am a school teacher in a nearby district. We had social distancing. We had students wearing masks. We had kids who, of course, are taking their masks off during mask breaks, and that's to be expected, especially with elementary school children and high school children. We let them go outside, take mask breaks, and everything like that. But we're talking about community health. We're not talking about something trivial, like my right to do something. I see everybody coming up here and saying, this is for my kid, this is for my niece. I'm standing here for our community. If one kid in a classroom gets COVID, it shuts down the whole classroom. Would you rather have your child sitting behind a screen for 6 months because we can't open? Think about that. My son lost a year and a half. Half of his junior year and most of his senior year, he got to go back a little bit. And I'm talking about a kid who has a disability, speaking of critical race theory, and a kid who was so anxious about this pandemic that I had to tell him he needs to go because I trust the school board to make these decisions. I'm shaking right now because I'm seeing a bunch of people who do not understand community health. This is not about your kid. This is about everyone's kid. This is about everyone watching at home and people who haven't gotten a chance to come to this meeting. And as far as critical race theory is concerned, Sauquoit Valley has been practicing this since day one. You just don't know it. We practice inclusion. We practice equality. Just because it's not labeled as critical race theory doesn't mean we're not doing it. So wake up, people. Sauquoit Valley is much different than the rest of this world. And if you think for 1 minute that because you were born white without a disabled child or not LGBTQ, you are wrong. Because as an educator, I've seen kids lose their lives, take their lives over things like that. So after 22 years of teaching, you might be shaking too if you had to put up with that, going to work every day, wondering if you're going to get that phone call because they don't feel equal and accepted. And that's not funny.
How many years have you been wearing a mask for? That's all I'm saying.
Sir.
The rights are not trivial. Your civil rights are not trivial. Hey,
All right,
folks,
please, let's keep order, please. If you want
we got a speaker.
please. Thank you very much, I appreciate it, thank you.
So my name is Dave Chirillo, you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chirillo.
So we talk about issues about suicides. Unfortunately, that hits home. A couple of us are in profession where we deal with these types of things, atrocities, horrible things, suicides. What are up right now in kids? Suicides, mental health. There's a lot more going on than just kids getting sick from the virus, or adults getting sick with the virus. The development, socialization, fear, depression, mental illness, this stuff is all stuff that you don't hear about from, CDC and the powers that be that are, in charge of putting out the recommendations and requirements and things like that. They prioritize this virus and it's how we stop it. We gotta stop it. We're not gonna stop this virus. We're not gonna stop the cold. We're not gonna stop the influenza. This isn't gonna stop. So ask, what is the end game here? What is the end game? We're in a third school season right now, and we're still doing this. Now, I know how it was early on. We knew nothing. We abided, we did everything, and again, my kids are too young to, my daughter's 4, she's just starting kindergarten, which destroys me that her face is gonna be covered. Her socials, everything's gonna be down to her kindergarten year. But it doesn't impact kids to that level. I don't get into that. So I don't know what the end game is. I don't know what we're looking at. Why we're still doing this. We're not looking for a fight. We're not looking for a dispute. We're not looking for a battle. All we're looking for is a choice. If you feel your kid, your child, student is at risk and is better off wearing a face covering or a face shield or an N95 or an N100 or an astronaut suit, whatever you want to do for your kid, that is perfectly fine. We're not looking for battle. We're fine with that. That's perfectly fine. Double up the mask if you like. All we're asking is to let us send our kids to school how we feel is best for them. My 4-year-old daughter, I don't want her to get sick. I hate when my kids are sick. It stinks. I hate my wife is sick. It's like having another kid. It's not fun. But I'm comfortable and confident that if she were to get sick, be it the flu, be it stomach bug, be it this virus, because the truth is, the majority of us, if not all of us, are going to come in contact with this thing. We're going to get it. It's going to happen. It's not going anywhere. Wearing a mask on everybody, locking yourself down, everyone. This isn't going anywhere. So I asked, what is the end game? What are we doing? Give us a choice. Let our kids be kids. And again, we're not looking for a battle. We're not looking for a fight. Do what you want with your kids. Do what you want with your life. Make adjustments to your life according to how you feel. How you feel is best. I had elderly people in my family. We adjusted. They adjusted. Vulnerable people adjust. You know what I mean? But 4-year-old daughter that has trouble speaking, has trouble breathing, sweating, for half a day of pre-K, now looking at a full day of kindergarten, isn't right. So that's just my 2 cents, and I hope you guys make a decision. I don't know who makes the decision. I wish we could get an answer as to what it is. Is it a majority vote by the board? Is it a superintendent's decision? I don't know why we can't get an answer. I don't know why this keeps getting punted, and with all due respect, I just wish that we can be straightforward. We're all adults, we're parents, we're educators. I'm ready to just give us an answer. Be straight with us. Sorry. So I got to repeat the last 4 minutes, or
No, it's okay.
All right. Just give us a straight answer. Hit us straight. Don't die. Just be straight with us. That's all we're asking. Please give us an answer as to who is making this decision, when, and how. And think about the kids, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy Familia. I have 2 kids in middle school and 1 that's starting kindergarten this year. God bless you, Mr. Cotton. He spent the last 2 years at St. Mary's in Clinton Elementary School, where he has not had to wear a mask. Trying to keep a mask on the kid is quite impossible, very energetic. The thought of somebody constantly having to, I don't want to say discipline him, but he takes any kind of comments towards him in a negative way, he gets very emotional. So to constantly be reminded to put a mask back on his face, I think he's just going to be defeated and deflated. I'm an RN. I work in a critical care unit, had for the last 9 years. I worked through COVID. It was scary as hell when it first started because nobody knew what was going to go on, what we could potentially bring home to our families every day. Disrobing in the garage, running to the shower because I didn't want to touch my kids. So I know it's very real. Got to hold hands with patients dying because their families weren't allowed into the hospital. So I know the virus is real, been very up close and personal with the virus. However, like Mr. Chola said, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be around, just like the flu is going to be around. Do we have a vaccine for the flu? Yeah. Does it work all the time? No.
did the masks work this past year to cut down on the common cold and influenza? Our hospital barely seen any of it. Do I think partially was it because of the mask? Yeah, the flu virus is much larger than the COVID virus. It also, we had a lot of social distancing. We had people that didn't leave the house. We had people that they were staying home and away from people. That cut down on numbers of the cases. So people can't say that masks were 100% the reason why people didn't have colds this year and people didn't have flu. And I completely agree with it. Our immune systems are going to crash if we don't come in contact with these things. Do I wish I needed COVID on anybody? No. If there is any, if people that got randomly tested that pop positive never had one symptom, and then you have the other gamut where you got people that are vented and they died, and they had no pre-existing health conditions. Nobody knows what your outcome is going to be if you get it. I've witnessed people that have had it twice already and been vaccinated. It's not going anywhere. We just don't want our children to be muzzled every day. My daughter never had emotional problems whatsoever. This past year has regressed immensely. She's afraid of everything. Won't go to friends' houses to spend the night that she's been at for the past several years. This is taking a huge mental toll on her. I want to go back. I know it sounds so immature of me to say, but I want my kids to go back to having a normal life. And being at school is normal. They want to be in school. If you guys decide that that means that they have to have a mask on, then they're going to have a mask on because they need the interaction with the teachers. They need their interaction with their classmates. I believe that wholeheartedly. I was shocked to see Dr. Ritter's name. He's my pediatrician. On a letter that came out, I called him, was very upset, and he explained to me, CJ, you know I don't agree with the masks, but I need the kids in school, so if my name on that letter means that the kids get to go to school for in-person learning, then my name's on that for that part of it only. So I want my kids in school. If you guys decide that that means that they have to have masks, I'm not happy about it because I feel like you guys represent us and the decisions that we want for our children. So I want the choice. I don't, if somebody wants to put a mask on their kid, by all means put a mask on your kid. If that makes you feel safer, lets you sleep better at night, go right ahead. If you believe that that mask is protecting your child, then your mask on your child should be sufficient for you. But also give me the same respect. And if I don't feel like my child needs a mask, for whatever reason, if I fear my daughter's mental health more than I fear for her physicality of getting the COVID virus, which I can probably say pretty well she would get past. She's had the flu before, and I've seen what the flu has done. Just give us the choice. That's all. That's all I want is a choice. And I live in America. I think that that's a pretty reasonable request. Thank you.
My name is Courtney Decart. I spoke last time before you as well. You know, my stance on this, I am advocating for family choice as well. I appreciate everyone's comfort. I appreciate everyone's family decision, but I want that same respect for my family as well. My main concern with all of this is the fact, again, emotional health, educational well-being for our children. They have given up 2, going on 3 years now. They are not seeing smiles. They are not interacting with their peers. These are key developments they need in elementary school. I also don't like to see my children sick, but I'm also very much aware that when they do get sick, that helps build their immunity. We all know when children go to school in the beginning, they're most likely sick, much more than they're going to be in following years. I work in the public all the time. I'm around people all day long. I touch people. I am close in contact with people, and I will say, I know when to take care of my body. I know how to eat healthy. I know that vitamins work. All of those things, but nobody is talking about any of those things. Fresh air, exercise, healthy eating, all of these things that work on a daily basis, but we are so centered on one thing. We are not looking at anything else, we are looking at one thing. We're not taking into account to mental health, emotional health. What these children truly need is to be amongst their peers, to have a normal school day, and not to be fearful to go out in fresh air and not be able to breathe fresh, clean air because they're being taught to put masks over their face while they are outside. I have never in my life thought I would have to defend my child to just breathe fresh, clean air when they are running and playing outdoors with their friends. I can't even wrap my head around it. So I am asking you to please take in consideration all of these things. I am asking for the choice for my family, and I do appreciate and respect everyone else's choice as well. But I, for my family, want them, they're face free. I want them breathing air, I want them smiling at their friends, and I want to see smiles in return to them. I also have a question. If you are going towards the mask mandate completely, I would like to know from the board and from the superintendent how we are going to properly ventilate our schools and get better airflow, because last year my children came home and they were a sweaty, disgusting mess. They could not breathe, they were hot, and their temperatures were extremely high from being hot. Running the track outside with the mask on and being inside in a classroom that had very poor airflow because there was no breeze and no fans. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I am Patricia Collins. I have a son going into his senior year, and I have a daughter in 4th grade. I did not prepare anything. I wanted to come here to be supportive, kind of get a feel for everything. I certainly have my own opinion about the masks, and so I'm going to share it with you now. I work in healthcare. I was one of the unlucky ones that wore a mask through the whole pandemic, cared for people, and I still got COVID. The mask, it didn't protect me. I caught COVID, I brought it home to my children, my 3 children. My daughter just graduated. My 3 kids got COVID, we recovered. I think that the most important thing that we really need to consider is think about the large groups, the large gatherings that are being allowed right now. In the recent past, Buffalo Bills playoff game, 6,700 people. Outside, I know, it was outside. The event center at Turning Stone holds 5,000 people. This is an indoor venue. There was a concert 2 weeks ago. What's the population in the elementary, middle, high school? Let's combine all 3, and it doesn't even touch 5,000. These large groups are able to gather. Why? Because it generates revenue. We don't generate revenue here. We pay for our children to come to school here. But these large groups of thousands of people are able to gather because it's all about the mighty dollar. If these groups can gather in thousands, why can our children not come to their school without a mask? That's something that I think everybody really needs to ask themselves. And while I'm very respectful of everybody's opinions here, my son has a disability. My son has sensory issues and ADHD. Him wearing that mask is torture. It is extremely difficult for him. He acts out in school. He suffers academically because of that sensory issue. And that sensory issue he's stuck with. I want the choice to be given to us. if people that are pro-masks believe that the mask will protect them, it didn't for me, but maybe I'm different. If the mask will protect you, wear it. Your mask wants to go to your children, you want your kids to wear it, let them. Let that mask protect those kids. But if you don't want your kids to deal with social issues, sensory issues, that's a drop in the bucket. Give us the choice. My kids already had COVID. I didn't work remotely from home. I never got one single day off other than when I was sick with COVID. I want my kids to be able to come to school without a mask. They have natural antibodies now. The 4 of us are protected. We know that we are protected. Think about Walmart. I was at Walmart on my way home from work today. There are hundreds of people in Walmart. Not a single mask. I want us to be able to allow our children to get back to some sense of normalcy, and kind of piggybacking on what some of these other speakers have said, it's not going anywhere. You have new variants. You have vaccinated, unvaccinated. Now you have them saying, well, even if you're vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. The truth is, nobody knows for 100% certain. People are going to come into contact, whether the mask is on, the mask is off, the vaccine is in your system or it's not. Give us the choice. Give the children the choice. That's not an unreasonable request. It truly isn't. As the speaker before me said, I'm an American citizen. I have a choice. We live in a country where we are able to make choices about our lives and our children and our health. By anyone forcing this mask mandate, you are making a judgment call on my child's health. And I don't think that's right. I appreciate everything that the board does. I love this school district. I think this is a wonderful place to raise a family. But I'll tell you right now, I don't want my kids coming here with a mask on. Give us the choice. Let people wear the mask if they want to, and if they don't want to, that is their choice. That is their American, God-given choice. So please take that into consideration. When you guys vote, or you decide, Ron, or however it spins, make sure that you ask yourself, am I making this decision for the parents and the community that I'm serving? Or am I making this based on my own personal judgment? So just please, give us that opportunity to decide for ourselves. Thank you.
Joshua Crow, I got 2 girls going to Sauquoit here. All right, taxpayer. Just want to touch base on a couple of things that I heard tonight, some of the comments that I made. First of all, I will not stand for sitting up here being a middle-class, hardworking, white male and making me feel guilty about it because my kids are the same, born into this. I mean, how is that anybody's fault? It's not. That's correct. All right? So touch base on this critical race theory crap. All right? Listen, it doesn't belong in the school. It doesn't belong in it. I got a mic now, thank you.
We can't, please refrain, allow our speaker to continue. Go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So what I'm trying to say is that, I mean, you say here, I mean, your vision, you say it right there in your vision, unity, unify, integrity. Listen, how can you sit there and say that you have this vision when you're sitting here contemplating teaching this and trying to make us feel guilty for who we are? All right? That's not unity, that's dividing. That is. You get down to brass tacks, that's exactly what you're doing. Like I said, Martin Luther King, right? You judge a man by the contents of the character, not the color of his skin, is that correct? Well, that's exactly what you're doing. Black, white, doesn't matter. You're judging me. That's what that CRT is, that's what it's teaching. Doesn't belong here. And I will fight tooth and nail with the gentleman over here to make sure it doesn't come back in. Doesn't belong here. Period. Secondly, the mask debate, I'm not here. You wanna wear a mask, wear a mask. You don't wanna wear a mask, don't wear a mask. It's not your choice to make. Not your choice to make. It is not. Whether you like it or not, it is not your choice to make. It is recommended, not required. And I'm gonna change the word. We're not asking you, we're demanding you take that requirement away. And lastly, to threaten our kids with disciplinary action for not showing up in a mask, well, I can mirror that also. I can mirror that with my own threat. Elections coming up.
My name is Mark Ritter, and I had 2 children who were in this district. Both have graduated and thank God are doing well. And thank you guys. And sat in your seats for 7 years. I think you have a difficult decision, but in the end, what I signed was what was recommended. And I think that's key. I think the key part from my side, the biggest part from my side was that children need to be in school. As many of you know what I do for a living, I have seen a tremendous, statistically we know, girls 50% higher, even more of incidents of depression, anxiety, increased suicide, just horrible things. The number of referrals I make daily for the psychosocial problems that have evolved from this virus have been huge. I'm not saying it all stems from masks, but certainly the children need, the kids need more normalcy in their life. And it certainly is not normal when I walk into a room and I'm vaccinated, the parents are vaccinated, the child is 4 years old and is literally scared to take a mask off. It just doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that you're responsible for that, but what I am saying is that we have to be careful what we require. I think, and quite frankly, the only mask that really works is an N95, and not only does it not work perfectly, it has to be fitted absolutely positively correctly if anyone knows about it. That's a really difficult thing. And so, again, I'm not in your shoes, I'm happy not to be, but I don't think that you necessarily have to be making some huge choices, because I think you can recommend lots of things, but what else are you also doing? The kids are already being separated. We already know it doesn't have to be 6 feet. It only has to be 3 feet. And that's enough. And they're in a classroom, they're being watched and cared for and educated by wonderful people. And I think we need to keep that in mind, because being at home doesn't work. We know that. In every study, in every country, it just is terrible. And also what it leads to is all the bad things that I just started out talking about. So again, I don't know whose decision this is, but I can tell you that I did sign a letter and it was recommended. I know I couldn't have signed a letter that said required. I can't. But I can say, well, I'm sure they said something to last year and this year kids need to be in school. And if it takes wearing a mask to get into the school, I don't know what the answer is. There's always ways to split it. You know, I'm not Sullivan or whatever, but we gotta come up with a way. But certainly once you're outside, you don't need a mask. That's been clearly shown. So I probably talked to my wife said, so it's maybe point shut up, so I'll shut up, I'm sorry.
And honestly, I'll say this, maybe it's not the right place, but if the board wants some statistics and information, I avail myself, I told Mr. Bond, not that I'm such a brilliant person, but I've done a ton of reading about this. And I don't have all the answers, nobody has all the answers. But like people said, this is not going away. Because not only is there a Delta variant, there's, a Lambda variant, there's tons of stuff coming. And just, so I'm sorry.
Thank you. We have a speaker here.
Hi, my name is Mike Kuhn. My daughter Courtney, I'm very proud of her for what she's taken on. And I'd also like to say, in conjunction with what Mr. Ritter said, if anybody has a mask that is their favorite one, I know my kids, I know my granddaughters, they have fancy ones in different colors, and they have, it's amazing. But if anybody has wearing paper masks, the blue ones, if you get the box out that they come from, and I'm sure the school has some of these boxes around, flip the box over and read the bottom of it. It tells you on the box that these masks do not work for this virus. It tells you right there in black and white that the Chinese or whoever's making them is obviously making tons and tons of money selling these masks to us that we're putting on our face thinking that we're protected, and they actually do nothing to help us. Like I say, when they put a warning label on cigarettes that say if you smoke you can get cancer and you could die, they put a warning label on the mask box that we're buying. We put them on our kids and we send them to school thinking they're going to be safe because they got their mask on. Nothing could be further from the truth. I just ask you, as everybody else has, and again, I respect the other people that made their comments. We need to know the facts. Everybody reads the paper, everybody listens to a different news channel, everybody listens to different comments, they read different articles. I don't see the facts when I listen to the news to be straightforward. I don't see when I hear the news, the people, the tainted numbers, the different things that are being reported. I mean, we had a governor in New York State that misreported numbers of COVID deaths. We also heard from several people, and I'm not just saying people like we're just sitting here, these are people that know what they're talking about, doctors, lawyers, they know.
Turn it off and back on.
Yeah.
Thanks. We hear from all these people the different sayings of what's good, what's bad, who's right, who's wrong. I don't know if everybody in here is right, but I certainly can't say that everybody's wrong. For you guys to have to make that decision, it's a tough thing for you to do. But I think to stay neutral in both sides and to let those who want to wear theirs and those that don't want to not wear theirs. I believe you'll make the right decision. I think you're going to have the better interest of all the people in the district. I know there's more people here than there was last time. Every time we have this conversation, there could be more, there could be less. But You've certainly seen that there's an interest in the conversation, the topic. So we ask for you to give it some good thought and keep our kids, grandkids in the forefront of this. That's the decision that we're making. It's not about us. It's about the kids. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I don't think my kids will love more than that.
Hi, my name is Aaron Gaber. This is the first one that I've attended. Just real quick, I've been with the state police for 15 years. Transported some of the first samples. It was pretty scary. I wanted to wear a hazmat suit. But where we are now with it, I don't want to play along anymore. I feel like it's all pretend. I know the virus is real, but this mask stuff is pretend. I'm sorry. My kids have never been so depressed. When school wasn't in session, the mask, they don't want to do it. I understand what the one speaker was saying about if a kid gets COVID and you got to shut down the whole class. I don't even see why you got to do that. Swipe through it, go through it, the next thing. We had to come through. I know other people, it's going to be bad for some, but it isn't going away. That's been brought up. The Delta variant, the variants, it's like, how long do you want to play along with this? And it's like, I don't want to play along anymore. I do have a mask. I came from practice over at Pop Warner. And I will wear it if somebody doesn't. If they got it on, I'll be respectful of them for that reason and because the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. And I'm going to promote that. Yeah, that's right. They're going all the way. But yeah, I just feel like I don't want to play along anymore. I don't know why that question can't be answered either. I think that's just a dodge. I don't know. I think it needs to be answered. And I also think the critical race theory is just a Democrat thing to turn out Democrat voters. It's just my opinion. I'm indoctrinated kids. I want them in school. I love the Sauquoit district. I came from Homer. I wasn't sure about this place. I'm happy. I like the school. And I'm proud to say it. When people ask where my kids go to school, I like it. I had 3 boys. Levi, Mason, and Silas, and then Delaney, who was 3. It was very hard to watch this 1 2-year-old just like, I need my math. I don't like it. I don't want to play along anymore. All right, thank you. I do think it should be a choice. I think it should be a choice. You want to do it, and do what's best for you. Think for your kids. I want to build these kids' immunity up. I don't want to do the carousel of shots and all this. I really do.
All right.
Kids are saying it.
Is there any other public at this point that would like to be heard before we move on to the meeting? Oh, we have a student that would like to be heard? Wonderful. Okay, that's great. If you just want, I don't want.
I think masks are wrong. I mean, I think it should be your choice, but personally, I don't like to wear them because they're hard to breathe in and you can't really interact and make friends with people when you're 6 feet apart and have to wear them. And so I think it should be your choice. If I'm going into middle school, and I want to make new friends, so I think it should be your choice if you want to wear one or not.
Thank you very much.
This is a letter written by my daughter, who's Madison Newell. She's going into the 8th grade. Mr. Madden knows her very well. On behalf of the students with similar opinions to mine, I am opposed to the idea of another year being trapped in a mask. Masks are restricting and are a burden. They make it harder to breathe. While I understand that they supposedly help others, they do not help me. As mentioned before, they make breathing harder. We mainly inhale our own breath. Are we no longer allowed to breathe the air around us? Us students have been dealing with masks for too long. How much more will we have to endure? Haven't we gone long enough? I think we can all agree we've been through a lot, but we can only handle so much. Enough is enough. Put an end to masks and make progress towards putting Corona and masks in the past and leaving them there. On behalf of the students, I say no to the masks. Thank you.
I'm Chuck Tibbetts. I have a son that's going to be a senior this year. I agree with pretty much everybody here. It's a personal choice. If you want to wear a mask, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But we do have to get back to normalcy, not just in Sauquoit Valley, but in the whole country and the whole world. These kids need sports. They need extracurricular stuff. They need to be able to live their lives, like they did up until 2 years ago. That's my stance on it. I would like to know though, who actually makes the decision for the school? Is it the school board? The board as a whole that makes the decision? Because we have to be back to normal. It's just, these kids have suffered too long. And besides that, like your son plays baseball all the time. Did he stop playing baseball during the pandemic? No. He was playing in other places. My son was wrestling in other states. Kids aren't going to stop doing stuff. Friends of mine's kids play hockey. They're traveling out of the state every weekend for a tournament instead of playing, somewhere locally. You're not going to stop the spread of this. This corona thing's here for the rest of our lives, probably the rest of our kids' lives. It's just going to be a fact. We just got to deal with it like anything else. But I think the biggest thing is, let's just return to normal. If you want to wear a mask, cool, great. If you don't, that's fine too. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to speak one more time, and I sincerely want to apologize if I offended anyone. Clearly, we have different political views, but that is not what this is about. So I just wanted to say one thing about the masks, most importantly. Like I said, I teach in a school. I will tell you that every year there's always been something that I find that parents are facing that they're worried about with their children. Having a child with special needs, I totally get it. I have a child with sensory needs. He's been through the gamut. He's a successful boy. Everything he's been through, he's survived in school and beyond the pandemic. But I will say that children are very resilient. They wear masks and they take their breaks. Sauquoit Valley School has been hotter than heck since the beginning of time. I would definitely vote for better ventilation. Even before masks, so I can understand why people would want that. But I think we just have to, I do think everyone has their individual rights. If there is anyone that's proud to be an American, I certainly am, no matter what the political view is here. But I do think, again, we need to visit the idea of community health. And yes, we're all sick and tired of wearing masks. I am too. I teach with a mask and with a shield. I'm required to. And I hate it. And I'm sitting with kids in front of a computer and kids next to me. And that's not good either. But that's the reality if it keeps spreading. The mask is not there to prevent you from really so much getting sick, but it's supposed to dive the numbers down a little bit so that we're not overwhelmed in our health system. That's what it's about. So I'm sorry if I came off the wrong way about masks. I would love for it to be a choice. But as a teacher, if I have some kids that are wearing masks and some kids that aren't, you're going to have a huge problem with kids who don't want to wear the mask but their parents want them to. And that's not what education is all about either. We have endured this. We're almost to the end of it as far as it being overwhelming We're gonna always have COVID, definitely, but we've seen kids die of flu too. So I'm just, as a community member, I don't wanna see the school being shut down again. And as a teacher, I certainly don't want kids unmasked in my classroom. That's not fair to my health either.
Thank you.
I'll counter with that. It's not a debate. Basically what you said a few times is.
Please allow him to speak uninterrupted.
Hold on,
Oh, okay, go ahead, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. There,
That's
can you hear me
okay.
now?
Yeah.
Let me keep bringing up her political. This isn't political. We're not making it political. We want the choice. It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with family choice in deciding what is right for our children. So she kept saying political, parts of political, because it doesn't involve. Throw it out here. It doesn't matter. Politics does not matter here. It's for our children.
Thank you.
Nathan Hannigan. One other question I'd like to bring up is, I would hate to see the school shut down. I'm all for mass choice. But did we keep track of any numbers of when a student came in contact with someone who had COVID and then put the kids in confinement? Did any of those kids get sick? I don't remember hearing anything through parents, teachers, social media that there was a lot of community transmission amongst the students. So I would also like to see that in the reopening plan or in the district plan, one, choice, and two, also, if there is a student that tests positive, all right, that student has, obviously would have to take the necessary measures that are recommended, but for the class, we would just continue to do testing on it going forward, and I think that would be very productive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin Sullivan, I just have something, there was a gentleman who had to leave earlier and he asked me to speak on his behalf. He had a recommendation.
What was his name?
Tony Newell, he had a recommendation to maybe just change the verbiage in the opening plan to include a yes choice for the family. But with the rising COVID numbers in United County, set a limit, saying, hey, if the cases reach X amount of numbers in the county, then we will require all students to wear masks at that time. Because like you said, we don't have any numbers. We don't have any limit here that says, you know, this is communicable between students and teachers or student to student or back and forth. There's just no numbers anywhere. I've looked for mask numbers and stuff of that sort. And so he had the idea to just put a number on it. Say, oh, United County reaches this level of hospitalized patients or deaths or, you know, testing positive and stuff of that sort. Then at that point, then make it a requirement. But until then, leave it a recommendation.
Okay. Sir, I have someone here who wants to.
No,
okay.
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 Sure. I know what you mean, I'm sure. To that question, okay, and we've heard this time and time again on the news, we've read it, we've seen it on the internet, we've talked about it. The numbers have not been true. The numbers have been tainted. Was resigned because he couldn't put straight numbers out for us, and he got caught. And many of the people that are putting these numbers out, I'm not saying Republican, Democrat, anything else, it's not a political thing. But the numbers do not support what they're telling us. So if United County's got 5 cases today and 50 tomorrow, are they true? Are they true cases? Are they made up? If somebody dies of a heart attack, we've heard that they've been put down as a COVID death. The hospital gets $39,000 for every COVID death. Why wouldn't they do that? So we've been so trained by all this stuff for 2 years, the back and forth, not to listen to the numbers. We can't trust, I'll say it, Dr. Fauci, he's from one wall to the other wall.
different people have made different comments about this stuff. What do you believe? So when you say about the numbers, I just don't feel comfortable with that statement because the numbers cannot be believed. We've seen time and time again where the numbers have been tainted, distorted, changed. It just goes on. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you can get into a lot of things, but I think what you can't do is say what something's happening in one place is happening here. And I think you have to individualize what you do even within a classroom based on what happens in that classroom and based on what's happening with those particular students. I don't think you can go with the general numbers of even Oneida County. I really don't think you can do that. I can quote you studies from Iceland. The kids went back to school, none of them wore masks, and all these things happened, and they were still fine. So, and you can look at other numbers and different things, and someone come up with a totally different thing and say things. So I think you have to truly individualize things for what's going on in your district, your situation, your school, your class. I think that's really important. So.
Thank you. All right. Are we good to move on? Is there anybody else who would like an opportunity to speak? We will come back again if there's anybody who has and would like an opportunity to speak. I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
Does the board have any questions? Or as a board, do you feel that you've heard all that you need to hear?
We've heard a lot tonight. Thank you, yes.
Yes, like I said, we've all spoke our piece,
Yes.
and you listened.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I will,
Go ahead. Am I allowed to speak as a parent?
I was gonna answer rebuttal, Mr. Kuhn.
Oh, okay.
My audience, family and friends that are here, that I've had a personal relationship with, I respect everyone that's here tonight. It's a true representation of the community, and it speaks an awful lot. The recommendation that we are going to vote on in answer to several of the questions that were asked, some of us have made up our mind. Some of us were open-minded as to what we heard tonight. We received data from Oneida County today. We received data from the Commissioner of Education. We received data from the pediatricians that Mr. Ritter referred to. We've received multiple data. And we received a recommendation that Mr. Wheelock asked us to look at and to voice our concerns for. I think this is a moratorium on if we're going to open school and keep school open or open school with masks. That's my opinion. We have 1,000 students here that we represent. And unfortunately, not every student comes from the wonderful families that are here represented tonight. And we have to admit that. So when each of us makes a decision tonight, it's going to be a decision that's going to be made for those students. I respect the job that everyone has done for their family, but not every child has that privilege or that opportunity to have a parent that would care for them if they were sick, if they came to school, if they didn't come to school. So I have to look at this as what's best for the district, okay? The recommendation that was made is a recommendation for outdoor use. Courtney, there would be no mask use outside. And I know that meant a lot to you. So when the students are at the playground, when they're on recess, according to the recommendation, they would not have to wear the mask, according to the CDC in the county and the pediatricians. So I think hopefully we can respect that. But as far as in the classroom is concerned, I think it's our responsibility as a board member that represents 1,000 students in this district that we begin school with a mask mandate. Excuse me. I listened to you and I asked you to listen to me. Thank you. And to my board members, I would make the recommendation at this time that we accept that recommendation to look out for all students and give everyone an opportunity. And when numbers drop and things get safe, according to the recommendation, we can change that policy. But to start the first day of school on the openness and honesty of everyone, I think there's going to be a lot of vulnerable children. I asked myself one question. We had a sign on the door tonight. If you're not vaccinated, would you please wear a mask? I see one person with a mask on. Does that mean we're all vaccinated? I don't want that answer. But you understand that we trust one another. And when your children and my grandchildren go to school, I've got to trust the person next to them is being treated for whatever symptoms they have. And if they're not being treated, then that virus is coming home to my house and to their house. Who's looking out for those children? I asked the board to consider a recommendation. If you need a recommendation, Mr. Wheelock, I would make it.
Well, before you do, you got a little bit ahead of me, but I appreciate your thoughts. And I do want to say, and I've been a little chomping at the bit, because I do want to answer your question, Carl. So I thank you for being patient. What's that?
I wanted to know the answer to this, yes, here.
That's right. It's a formal process, and I understand meetings can be formal. Thank you for your patience, and so I will address that first because I've been chomping at the bit. Things like this will, part of my job as a superintendent is to take in all the information that we have and try to come up with a recommendation for the board to consider. And then they consider it. They accept it or they don't accept it or they modify it. The opportunity that you just had is very valuable to them, to hear that, and to hear not only what you have to say, but the passion in which you said it. And so that I wanted to get off the chest. The first thing I really wanted to say was thank you for everybody for respectfully sharing your concerns. And I know that it gets to be a little bit, but when you get a room full of people, you have differing views, it can get bad. And it did. And I'm so grateful for that. And it says a lot about this community. And it says a lot about why the administrators administer, why the teachers teach, and why I'm the superintendent here. Why I like being here is because I do have a community that has been supportive and I believe has been respectful. Now, we all have our moments, myself included, but in all, this has been a very supportive community. You've had to endure like other communities have throughout the state, throughout our country. And I 100% agree. COVID is not going anywhere. The flu's never gone anywhere. It just keeps materializing, and I'm not going to go much further on that because it's going to get far above where my expertise in science can go. But I do believe that. I do believe that you all want to have your kids come to school. Even those that want the mask now, eventually I know they want their kids to be able to come to school without masks. I want the same thing. Our teachers want the same thing. They want to be able to teach without masks. I want to have our kids here without masks. It's what is the right time to do it? What is the right, as Tony had said, he was, maybe now is not the time, but there will be a time. People brought up, if they set benchmarks with numbers, and I can't disagree with them. I don't make up the numbers. I don't have, I look at the numbers. I see where the trend's going. But we have to make our decisions and I try to make recommendations based on those kinds of things that are out there. Whether they're truthful or not, I don't necessarily get to decide that. And I certainly don't get to decide on the recommendations that come down our way from established institutions, whether it's from CDC, whether it's from state ed department, whether it's from our local Department of Health and our county executive, making statements, and local pediatricians. And Dr. Ritter, I'm sure, I've known you a long time, you've taken care of my kids. I know where you come from. And I'm sure it's difficult, to take that information and to sign your name to something. Well, the thing that you said that resonated with me, and I think it resonates with everybody here, we want our kids in school. We need to have them. We did that remote thing for 6 weeks last year. It was not fun. We did the hybrid last year, and it was not fun. It was not good. We are in such a better place this year right now than we were last year at this time. And last year, we were told, here's mandates, make it work in your district. This year, we were told there were going to be directions coming. That didn't come. It's still May with a change in governor, but it's not here yet. It's been left in our hands as a local decision. But here's what everybody recommends. And that's basically what, what I've shared with the board in my recommendation, with the caveat is my goal is to get every kid back in school and maintain it. Maintain it, not just to get them here on day one or the first week or the first 4 weeks, but to try to maintain it throughout the year. And if we can do things, some districts might be having difficulties, but if in Sauquoit Valley, we're doing all right and we can keep our doors open and we've had a positive case and we get them out of the classroom, and it protects everybody else and we can stay open, that's great. Is the mask the end all be all? I don't believe that it is, but I do believe it's one part of the formula that does help us mitigate this. It does not eradicate it, I understand that. It's just one small piece that I've shared, this is, and I'm looking out to the crowd because I want to include everybody, but this is where I'm speaking to the board. Where I was coming from in some of the recommendations. And I'm concerned if we take away one component of our mitigation efforts, and again, they're not all perfect. We continue to try to get better in what we can do, but I think that all of them working together gives us that better opportunity to keep our doors open and keep the kids in the classroom where they need to be. That concern about kids who are, in a classroom, if they're masked, we're being told that if I was positive, sitting next to Mr. Cowan, we both had masks on, I would be the only one who would have to leave the classroom. We wouldn't have to shut down the classroom, and if we were at least 3 feet apart, he would not have to quarantine either, unless he started to show symptoms. And we don't necessarily make that call. We get notice that somebody has contracted COVID, we contact the Department of Health, they begin to contact tracing, they begin to determine who's going to quarantine, who doesn't have to quarantine, who has to self-monitor. And some of you people have probably got those calls from the Department of Health. You probably got calls from your principals or myself last year stating, hey, you were on a bus and somebody was positive, you have to stay out of school. They relaxed that last year. It got better. We were scratching our heads. Why did we make the effort to put every kid in a seat, one seat on the bus, masked, and if somebody was positive, the whole bus had to quarantine? It didn't make sense. They did finally relax that rule, and they kind of at least made it a proximity. The kids around the immediate area are the only ones that had it. We didn't have to shut down. The bus driver didn't have to go unless they were going to be right behind the bus driver, but we kept that seat open for a reason. So they have made some headway regarding relaxing some of these, some of the mandates and some of the, as the science, if it is science, as it keeps evolving and people, the CDC starts looking at things, they come out with different recommendations. I don't know what we're going to get out of the state health department this year. Absent of an executive order, right now the state health department has laid silent on this. We're in the world of education, they're in the world of public health, and they're not giving us help. That's, I think, where we need to get some of that help, and we're not getting it from them. So we're forced to make these very difficult decisions. It is not easy. We do take it very seriously. So those are some of the concerns that I speak as far as recommendations, what Mr. McIntyre was referring to. So the masking, yes, based on the CDC, based on SCD, based on what we're hearing from our local Department of Health. And again, as I said, I don't know what's going to happen when we have a new governor, if she's going to weigh in on this. But I'm using that so that we can keep every kid in the classroom and try to use every opportunity, every resource that we have as much as possible and to the best of our ability to keep kids in the classroom. As far as vaccinations, part of my recommendation was we will continue to promote it, but we understand that's your choice. We can't force you to get vaccinated.
But obviously that, being publicized, is that's one way to help try to get to the end of this so that we can get back to that normal, what we all want to do. The district will always, we've hosted it twice now, we'll do it again if we'll host vaccination clinics to make it easier for those that want to get vaccinated. Physical distancing is 3 feet. 6 feet, obviously, between staff and student, and between staff are still asked to maintain 6 feet. As Mr. Nicotera said, this is an indoor mask mandate only. When we go outside, that was something that changed last year. And essentially, our plan is really unchanged from where we ended last school year. These were the things that were in place at the end of last school year, with the exception, thank God, that we don't have to wear shields on the buses. And that was a mandate. They said if we're going to put more kids on a bus, we need to do the shields. We just need to have them masked at this time. That covers the transportation piece. Cleaning and disinfecting will continue to do that at least once a day if we can get it done during the day. I know our teachers, they weren't required to do it, but many of them were cleaning their classroom between every class. Some were at least maybe during they had a couple classes, had a planned period before they went to lunch. They might spend 5-10 minutes wiping down desks and high touch surfaces in their room. They did that. We'll do as much as we can continue to do with the resources and manpower we have on that front. Hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette, again, we'll continue to preach that. We'll continue to have those signs throughout the school. They mentioned COVID testing and recommended with COVID testing. Problem with that is resources to be able to do it. Although we may be able to get test kits, the logistics in doing it and how many do you do? You just, maybe it's reasonable if we can do 10% of a school population a week. But again, that would take parent permission to do that. And certainly would do that. They've talked about the county getting money. I believe they will be turning it over to our BOCES to help with this. Pool testing, where a pool of kids or in staff would get tested, and then it's one way we can kind of monitor what's going on in our district and what's the prevalence of COVID in our district. But we're still waiting for more information on that. Quarantines, again, we will follow protocols from the Department of Health. We will continue to use unless it becomes well, there are some changes to it. Obviously, with vaccinated status, that changes whether some people have to quarantine or not. But we're asking, or we're actually, people to continue to follow that return to, can my child come to school today, or can my child return to school? There was a checklist that we had, and we had it on the website last year. We'll continue to use that as long as that remains to be valid information or it's updated. I think we continue to monitor the area positivity rate, and I think we do. This isn't something that we say, and this is what happens. I hope we can revisit this if the board decides to do the mask mandate going forward, that it is something that I hope we get to revisit, because I do agree with what people are saying. This isn't going away. And we hopefully will continue to evolve to find ways, things that we should continue to do or things that we've been doing that we no longer have to do. We've at least seen some of that already. It just hasn't occurred with masks yet. That's the piece I guess I wanted to get before Tony spoke there. But this is a time for the board to certainly talk amongst themselves, share their concerns. If you have questions for me, I will do my best to answer them. And then ultimately, we'll take it from there.
Just before we move on, Russ. Oh,
yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't know if I'm coming in clearly or if it's shaking
Yeah.
because I'm on.
No, we can hear you.
So it's difficult for everybody. From the beginning, there's a lot of division that's occurring, in my opinion, related to the pandemic. It started when people were deemed unessential, and their businesses were closed down, and they lost their jobs, and other just horror stories. And related to those who are unvaccinated and those who don't wear masks. And then we've all heard on the news, and you know, you have options for news, and you know, you can look for news. And I mean, one thing that was happening is we've heard that you can be vaccinated or unvaccinated, wear a mask or not, and it's still going to make people sick. So they demonize the unvaccinated, and then everyone's now coming together, and it's hard. It's very difficult, and it seems at every turn we're split. It's very difficult. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I had a comment. Somebody in the crowd made a comment comparing the Positivity Project to critical race theory. Not even close. And there was another people who made a comment about teaching aspects of that all along, which is what a lot of people I've spoken to, parents, family, that was a concern, and that concern's been confirmed, that this has been happening for a long time. And that's further dividing everybody. Masked, unmasked, vaccinated, unvaccinated, privileged, poor, people of color, gender, whatever. It's unfortunate. And I'll stop there. I appreciate the microphone.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Is that okay? Sure, go ahead. I was trying to get to see if there was anything in the chat room. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to check, but absolutely, Jody. Huh? Okay, go ahead, Jody.
Turn your
Yeah,
mic
I'm
on.
sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just press the top of it, top of the box.
Is it green? Should turn green when you press and hold.
Is it on?
Press and hold. You should turn
There it
green.
is. Okay. Hi all. I've had children in this school district. My youngest is 15, my oldest is going to be 30. My middle child, however, Dr. Ritter might remember him. When he was first born, he had a heart transplant. He is extremely disabled in many, many ways. He was in Mrs. Burns, when she was Mrs. Burns, as a matter of fact, and Evan was here. I remember bringing him home from the hospital. He wasn't allowed, we had to get rid of our animals. We were masked, our hair was covered, our feet were covered, we gowned, we scrubbed up to the elbows. I mean, the whole thing. It makes these little masks look like nothing. We left him at home when we went to church, not home. He wasn't a part of our family for a very long time, until one day I said I didn't have him have a heart transplant to not live. It's a quality of life issue. At some point, there is a jumping off point. Are we there yet? I know when I was there, I knew when I said I'm not going to let my child's life be nothing. Be in this little cage, afraid of everything, not able to go to a petting zoo, not able to have animals. We do have animals now, too many probably. But I wanted him to have the full life experience, and it's something that we've lived with viruses our entire life. We were walking around in N95 contractor masks at the beginning of this. I don't ever want to go back to that. People need to educate themselves. They need to be aware of what's going on, and they cannot rely on crutches that will not save their lives. A cloth mask, a t-shirt mask will not save anybody's life. Will not. It will. I got sick. I had COVID. I didn't go home. I missed all my two boys, 15 and then, he was 14 at the time, and Evan. They were home together. Oh my gosh, after 2 weeks of me being out of the house, you should have seen the laundry that I came home to. But we all have to take care of one another. And we have to stop being mean to one another. But we also have to jump off. So life, someday, with this virus, we will be happy, and we cannot have children scared. We cannot have these children be scared. I didn't want Evan growing up being scared of everything. And I didn't. He lived his life.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Sure, you could. Is there anything in the chat room, any comments?
Questions?
If you share them, we just may not be answering them.
Hold on.
I'm just going to read off some of the questions that showed up in the chat. Some questions about, will the students have extra time before and after lunch to wash and sanitize their hands after handling their masks? There were, what will the process be for exposed children and staff? Will they have to quarantine if they are asymptomatic? Will the process be different for vaccinated versus non-vaccinated children? I don't know if I'm holding it close or not. There were questions regarding if the school would be obtaining each child's vaccination status. Questions regarding if the viral load is supposed to be lower in vaccinated children, so will vaccinated children have a choice not to wear a mask if we show proof? Will the school be sending out a survey to get all of the parents' opinions on mask mandates? There's a question if this is being voted on this evening. If a child is quarantined, how will they be educated at home? Will this be included in the back to school plan? There was mention of Dr. Ritter's comment about N95 masks being the only ones that work. If so, will the school mandate N95 for our children and provide them and have them fitted properly? Will teachers be required to wear N95 masks only as well? No paper or cloth masks. Has there been a decision made on fall sports? There was a question regarding testing children without permission. I think that was a miscommunication. If masks are mandatory and not optional, are there restrictions on the type of masks? And then the final question was about, can outdoor classrooms be set up on good weather days? So kind of across the gamut.
Any others?
Good evening, everyone, and board members. First of all, I just would like to thank all the parents that came here and spoke today. Many of you I have seen before, except for Patricia there. She was a former student of mine, I believe. But anyways, I've given this a lot of thought. Unfortunately, I did not attend the last meeting. It was out of town business. But I've read the documents that Mr. Wheelock has supplied to us. I've read the SED documents, and I agree with some of the comments that were made here. I agree with a lot of them. I agree with Mr. Nicotera. I thank you for coming here and defending your children, because that's what you do as parents. That's what I did as a parent. That's what everyone up here does as parents. We defend our children because that's our responsibility. But I also agree with Mr. Nicotera that unfortunately our state leaders in the health field have dumped this decision on us as a Board of Education member. And I have all the confidence with the people that are up here. They're great people. And they want to do what's best for our kids, and what's best for our staff, and what's best for the community. But I'm not a health expert. Dr. Ritter's here. I respect him and the pediatricians that we have here. But I thought, in my opinion, the health department should be making this decision and mandating it. I think it's a cop-out that they made the decision and put it on us. That's my opinion on it. But looking at the documents that you have, I do have some concerns with certain aspects of it, because I believe the document keeps saying that it must be a layered approach. And I did hear a young lady that spoke a few times here talk about the rate of transmission. That needs to be a key factor, and I heard Dr. Ritter say the same thing. That's what you should be basing your mitigation steps on. And I personally don't agree that you should just make a blanket statement, and whether you're in a mild transmission rate or a moderate or significant or high, which according to Oneida County, we're in high right now, we should be mandating masks for every one of those transmission rates. I think what I've heard tonight was, when is this going to end? What is the standard? What can we prepare for? And I believe that we should be looking at this reopening document based on community transmission. That's what the CDC document says. That's what SCD says that you should do. You should be basing it on community transmission. The only community transmission I'm aware of right now that we have data, whether we want to believe the numbers or not, is Oneida County. I don't know how you get to Sauquoit Valley's transmission rate. If it is with pool testing, then let's look at pool testing. And then we find out what's going on in our community of Sauquoit, what's going on with our district. Or we rely on Oneida County. And when that transmission rate starts to drop, because I believe the Delta variant is going up, and that's why we're at the high transmission we're on. But then when we get over the curve and we start to drop down, then parents know this is what we're going to do when we get to those certain transmissions. And these are the mitigation factors that we're going to implement. So, me personally, I am in favor of the mask mandate at this time, only because we are in a high transmission rate. And I think in the future, though, this document needs to be tweaked, and I think we need to base it on the transmission rate within our community and the vaccination rate. That's where the recommendations are.
Thank you, Ted. Anybody else? No, sure, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
No.
I think you gotta hold it, Tim.
The green light?
Yeah.
The green light's on.
Yep.
One of the things that drew me to the Board of Education here was the concern that I saw in people here for the people that they work with. And for me, wearing a mask is, I see it, I like it. I like the document in that it represents some flexible factors about it, that it can change to meet whatever the need is. But my concern is for the entire school. It's a school-wide concern. And as someone mentioned here about, when they were talking about critical race theory, you know, what really counts is what's inside somebody. What we really want to promote and encourage our kids in, and ourselves, is there are times where maybe we might need to sacrifice for someone else's benefit. And that's where I have difficulty. I can see people shaking their head, you know, but I'm just sharing with you, as you shared with me, where I'm coming from. And that I think that that's not a bad thing, to do something for the sake of situations where people are dealing with things that are very difficult in terms of illness, compromised immune systems, elderly people that they may be taking care of at home. So, you know, I'm sharing this just because I feel that responsibility as a board member to think about 1,000 people and at the same time respect and value the things that you folks who have come here tonight shared. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I did just want to add, you know, the final part of, and one thing that I think was brought up in a question that, we can address is, so long as we're committed to do so, and stay open based on our county, based on the state, our goal is to provide in-person instruction. Last year, it was mandated that we had to at least make the offering for remote instruction. And, as we know we definitely don't want to be there, but we can't offer that again this year. We can't put our teachers through teaching in multiple modes, whether it's through hybrid, whether it's through remote synchronously in the classroom. That was a difficult task to manage both teaching environments and to try to do it justice for both. So my recommendation certainly is we stick with the in-person model. And if we're dictated to say, hey, our numbers or rates are similar to last year, we had a lot of staff that had to quarantine, and we're starting to grow in numbers with kids. That forced our shutdown, and then the whole county started to go up, and that extended our shutdown. We want to try to avoid that, so that we can maintain, have our teachers here with the kids every day, doing their job, planning for one mode of instruction, and not trying to split their time and also split their effectiveness in doing so. That's part of this plan. I know there was a question as far as quarantine. We hope with some of the guidelines and with the mask, if that helps, that will minimize some of the quarantining, which will minimize the number of kids that are out of school. But we will probably handle that much like we have in the past pre-COVID. If you happen to be out of school, we'll provide the work for you, and you work on it until you can get back into school. But certainly, like I said, we won't be all of a sudden converting a classroom from full in person to then make it remote. There's just a lot of difficulty in doing that and maintaining our effectiveness in our instruction. So again, this will continue to evolve as we can evolve, and as these things change, as quarantine rules change, and hopefully as mask mandate rules change, we can amend that. That is our hope. That's what we would like to do. And we want to continue to work with this, have you work with us, and we want to work with you, and see this through together. Is where personally that's where I feel. I mean, I feel I could stand up and say some of the things that you guys said tonight, and that's how I feel. But I don't believe that's the situation we're in. Until the rules of COVID change, that's what we need. If the medical field starts to look at this and say, let's start treating this like the flu. We don't mask for the flu, why should we mask for this? I'm ready to look into that, but I don't know what the metrics would be, Todd, as far as a layered approach. But that's what I did mention here is kind of one of my final considerations is the ability to reassess this and adapt to the times. And it might be more stringent. Hopefully it goes the other way and it's not as stringent. But hold on one second. I think we'll have another public to be heard. So
I would just like to say, Mr. Wheelock, that I think the only comment I failed to make just a few minutes ago was I think every person in this room, board included, you as administrators, the administrators, the parents that are all here, we are all in agreement that the most important thing that we need to do is get our kids back in school to in-person instruction. And I do appreciate that your recommendation says that is the only option that our kids have at this time. That is the focus. I agree with everybody. I've seen it firsthand. The mental health aspect of it, we need to get our kids back into person the whole year.
Hold on, we're going to come back. We're going to come back to public to be heard.
We're also going to have the benefit of seeing what happens around the country, actually. There'll be a lot of opportunity to add to our decision as we watch Florida, which is, kind of running a test run on, not supporting masks. It's going to be pretty quick that we'll get feedback on how these things are working out, and we won't be the guinea pigs that are trying.
Sir, we're gonna come back for public to be heard if you just wanna hold a second, okay? No, that's okay. No, that's, yeah, absolutely, I understand.
Mr. Wheelock, I do have a question for you is that, like I said, we got a lot of information, a lot of feedback tonight. In your opinion and the administrator's position, how critical is it that we take action on this recommendation tonight?
Well, people obviously want to know what they're going to be faced with. I mean, people have to make decisions. If this is going to change people's mind about attending school, they need to know. You know, we're continuing. We held off waiting because we were told there will be guidance coming from the state. And less than 2 weeks ago, that fell through and said there will be no guidance, absence of the executive order, and it's almost like like the State Department of Health does not exist. That they only existed because there was an executive order, and now that absent, as Mr. Nelson had talked about. So therefore, the recommendation or the director of the State Department of Health's comment basically was there will be no guidance coming. However, we recommend the school districts follow CDC guidelines. That's what we got from our state on a public health issue. So that being said, we're now trying to put together a plan of how things are going to look. We've been, meeting with teachers as far as what different scenarios and how to plan for that. And I give them the same vague answers that you probably feel you're getting from me. Looking for better direction, but we're going to have to create our direction absent of any specific direction. And hence, these are the recommendations. If you don't feel you can act on it, I mean, it just delays the process. And I don't know if that means we're waiting for the governor to come out, the new governor to come out and say something. We could adopt a plan, and then there comes out something different that we have to now follow and re-adopt this plan. It's just, we're in an extremely, extremely, extremely difficult position that we've been put in. And so we've got to try to make some decisions, and it's not going to be, and everybody's not going to like them.
I wholeheartedly agree with your comments that, tomorrow the new governor or next week could whatever come out with new things and this would be moot and null and void. And I'm comfortable with starting with a reopening plan based on your recommendations that you have made. My concern is I would like to see them amended earlier in the school year to address what's going to happen in the future based on the transmission rates in our community. And with all due respect, Jim, I understand, Florida and Texas. I'm not concerned with Florida and Texas. I'm concerned with Sauquoit Valley. I'm concerned with our community transmission here, and whether it's Oneida County, I'd rather see it specifically to Sauquoit Valley, because I think that's what I heard tonight, and that's what I would like to see is what is our plan moving forward for the year. And I don't want to rely on the state government. They have failed us, in my opinion. They dropped this bomb into our laps. So if they want to do that, that's fine. But then let us as a community decide how we're going to proceed. I agree with the recommendations that you have here, but I want to see what's going to happen moving forward. And if the state government wants to advocate that and not make any decisions, then we're going to make it as a community. That's what I heard here tonight. No, we're going to listen to you, but unfortunately, the process that we have here is this is our governing body for the Sauquoit Valley School District.
Okay, hold on,
Yeah,
folks,
hold on
please,
just a sec,
continue to be patient.
Just for point of information, everybody, when you're sitting up there as a board, this is a meeting. It's open to the public, and we're not supposed to talk until we're supposed to be recognized, so we have to respect that.
Thank you.
So just to finish up my comments, I would definitely not want to delay this because I think there are decisions that have to be made by our families in our community, but I'm not comfortable voting on the recommendations here without the caveat that there's going to be some amendments and we're going to address the future of this and where we're going to go. I don't have the answers to that, but I think that discussion, it can't be just, here's the way we're doing reopening it, and then we're going to wait for government to make it until we switch it. I think we should make that decision for ourselves. That's my opinion.
Are we good? Yeah, we technically did do superintendent's report.
Oh, that was.
Yes.
Well,
So,
okay, I will,
yeah, we're
let me finish up, that was the major portion of my
Yeah,
superintendent's
that's-
report.
yeah.
But I was remiss in stating that freshman orientation will begin tomorrow, August 18th here at the high school. And our staff development day will be September 1st and 2nd, the school starting Tuesday, September 7th, will be the first day with kids. And it is posted on our website, but once again, lunches will be free to all 18-year-old and younger students for the school year. And that's it for my report.
Okay. Next, we will move on again for public to be heard. And please, thank you so much. If you could just come down to the mic, it would be great.
Ron, in your address, you've mentioned several times mandate versus, what's the other word I'm looking for? Recommendation. Based on what you put in your, I haven't read your paperwork that you sent out to the board members or whoever else got it. Did you base your paperwork on the mandate side of this, that it's been mandated from somebody, or is it a recommendation from the CDC and whoever else that you're basing your information on? That would be a question.
And I don't want to break formalities because it's not a question and answer thing. However, it is something I did address in here and I did speak, and I am based on the recommendations from the CDC, from state ed department. That's the information we have to work with and just try to have to formulate our opinion from
several times you mentioned mandates. I don't know that there are any mandates on this.
No.
They're all recommendations from wherever they come from.
To my knowledge, yes. Mandates might come from quarantine from the Department of Health, but that's something we don't control. That's not part of.
We've all seen that too, and I had, we've all seen people or known people who have done themselves that have been quarantined. And the county system for that, way back in the beginning was not very well organized. Like I said, I'm sure you dealt with it, same as everybody else did. One day your phone would ring and then you wouldn't hear from them again, so that was not very well organized. Thanks.
Like I said earlier, I work for state government. I get tons of phone calls every day in my office regarding what is the legal obligations of the school board and districts and putting it back on, the state Department of Health put it back on to state ed put it on you. So I think that says a lot about our state government right there, that nobody wants to take responsibility. And it's being put back on you. And what I guess I'm a little upset about is that we didn't really get to see the district, the plans. Last year we were afforded because it was mandated by the state for you to have these public hearings for us to, give our input on your reopening plans. This year we weren't afforded that because it was a mandate. And, that I don't think that's right either. But I'm looking, I have the state ed one, this year's, last year's was about this thick, about your mandates, this is all your recommendations. So the only thing that I can get out of, and the only legal thing that my legal department of the state legislature could find, was that the CDC mandate for masks on public transportation, which includes school buses. That is your only mandate that legally we believe right now is the only mandate. And so my question is, are you requiring social distancing on the buses? Because the CDC does not require social distancing on the buses anymore. That is part of that. Since I didn't really see the plan for going through the plans from last year, temperature checks are no longer recommended from CDC. So I didn't know if we were still using resources on that, if we're still doing protocols and things like that. So my biggest concern is the mandates and the lack of transparency to people of the district. You know, you said that you want to represent the people that aren't here. Did you give the chance to the people before to do a Google Doc, and we got to do votes on whether we thought it was okay for our kids to wear masks outside, or, you know, how we felt about that. So I'm not asking as a parent, that all I ask is that you give us the same abilities and afford us that as we got when you were mandated by the state. The same state that let you down, and now you don't want to do those things for us. That concerns me. That concerns me.
Alright, I just wanted to say a couple of quick things, and then I'm leaving, this is really late and I'm tired. So, just sitting here listening to everyone's opinions, both on the board and in the audience, something that kind of popped into my mind that I think I'm more concerned about now than I was when I walked through the door is the social aspect of my daughter. I know last year the kids were sitting at tables alone. Restaurants are open, folks. They are wide open. You sit down at that table with 6 people, you can take your mask off. So what are we doing with our children? If these adults that actually are more at risk for developing severe side effects related to COVID, if they're able to sit in a restaurant, I really hope to God that you guys are gonna make sure my child, my 9-year-old child who is thriving on that socialization, is not sitting at a table by herself. No child should be sitting alone, especially when these restaurants are open. So that's something that I think definitely needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Our comments again, I think Ms. Wheelock answering the question is the decision will be within this room. It's good to know. With that being said, people sitting up here, they write for school board. They have constituents, which would be us, correct? I would think so. With that being said, I think you need to listen to your constituents, maybe people outside the room, but I think the number in the room compared to them that want the masks versus the ones that want to leave it as choice, I think it's loud and clear. Okay? And everybody has a chance when your chance comes up. You know, you're talking about Oneida County, this gentleman, you're talking about Florida. Okay, you guys are getting together to figure out together. Especially the children, again, the children, not what your view is of what is important. Okay, but again, we're your constituents, remember that. All right, I hate politics for this reason, because they don't listen to the people they represent. You represent us, I hear that all the time. I pay your salary because of my job. I can't run for school board, otherwise I would, because I'm a part of it. Just remember that, okay? Thank you.
I have just a few
Can you
things.
fix the microphone so we can hear?
I just have a few things that I want, and I don't know how I would get the answers, because I know it's not a debate right now, but I would like answers to questions that I have that are important for me. Is, I think someone just spoke to, when the children are sitting at their desks, are they going to be required to wear a mask? If you've all decided now against, you know, what we wanted and what we asked for, if you're gonna decide amongst yourselves that you're gonna go ahead with your agendas anyway, I would like to know for sitting at desks, are they gonna be required? Lunchtime, this was a big thing. They were sitting separately at lunchtime with no interaction. My daughter was sitting at the very back of the cafeteria for some time, away from all of her friends because it was basically how they stood in line. And that's who she got to sit next to. And she's come home crying many times. The other thing I have a question about is, again, the ventilation and the airflow, because I would like an answer to that and how we are going to help our children if they are having to cover their face in these hot, stuffy classrooms. How are we going to help them have fresh air blowing? Because many of the people making these decisions, unfortunately, do sit in air-conditioned rooms all day long. And then the other thing is, we spoke many times of recommendations and mandates. We all have agreed that these are recommendations. I don't understand how we can have a state recommending everything. Yes, they dropped the ball, they've dropped the ball many times, they're wishy-washy, all these things. But how can we, when you hear all of us out here, the state is telling us recommendation, but we are choosing to mandate something. I will sign a waiver for my child. That's fine. I will sign a waiver, I will hand it to you, I will take all liability, but I'm going to also put liability on you guys, because if I find that there are statistics stating that those masks are gonna harm my child mentally, physically, emotionally, and any other educational barriers they're gonna have, I am going to hold you liable for that. Thank you.
There's no
microphone.
No microphone. Hold on, you have it right here.
I'd just like to say that there is definitely an emotional and social impact with the masks. I've seen it in the elementary schools, you know, kids not being able to sit together. But I like the idea of the layered approach, where we were talking about like not just saying mask mandate and then we're done with it. Let's come up with a plan. I think that's a great idea to make everybody happy. But I also want you to consider if we do have to close down, the social and emotional impact of that. Because kids, little kids and teenagers behind a screen all day long, not interacting, is far worse than wearing a mask.
Dr. Ritter, I'm just gonna cut you off real quick, just for 1 second. I'm being real quick, because like she said, it's getting late, I got kids at home. I just wanted to say real quick that you guys up there, I appreciate Sauquoit Valley, I love this school district, that's one of the reasons why we moved where we did. I'm originally from Arkansas, I don't have an accent, so you'll be able to tell that. But I just wanted to say that I know that this is a really difficult decision. It really broke my heart to hear that you guys had, some of you already had your minds made up before you came here today. Like, to me, that's ridiculous, especially if you knew that we were gonna come and pour our hearts out to you and give you our opinion. So that really hurt me deeply. I will say that. But ultimately, I know that this is a difficult decision for everyone to make. Don't make it. Let us. We're the parents. Let us make the decision for our kids. Don't make the decision. I know it's hard. The state told you guys to go fuck yourselves and make your own decision. But we are the parents. We choose. The choice is hard. Let us make it.
When you guys were talking here, two of you mentioned that you worry about what happens when the kids go home. That's not your job. Your job is to take care of the kids in the school, in this community. It's family members, people's decision in their home, what they do to protect their home. They choose to send their child to school. If they send their child to school with a mask on, that's their choice. But their child going to school and then going back home is not your responsibility. We all make our choices. I just feel, I sit on many boards, I make many decisions. I've made many decisions sitting on a board that were against what I thought, but were for the greater good of the students. I think we have to make decisions for the students here and not worry about how that might affect. And I'm in the medical field. I know that affects the grandmother, the grandfather, the aunts, the uncles, but the kids need to live. And I'm not saying you don't go with masks, but maybe, and also, if 3 feet's enough, which it is, we know it is, 6 feet was ridiculous, then once you're sitting at a table, at their desk, why can't they just take it off? But again, I'm not sitting in your chair, I get it, but you don't, I mean, thank you, my wife.
Thank you. Are there any other public that would like to be heard? Okay.
With all due respect, Dr. Ritter, there are other people in the district who are elderly and are on the verge of retiring and have been there for a long time who do have those health conditions too. Should we be forced to not work because other people are unmasked?
Let's folks try to remember it's not a public debate, so let's respect each other's opinions, please. Please, thank you. That's okay. I don't, let's not try to go back and forth. Let's listen to what we have to say and just be respectful and kind. Let's remember to be kind. Do we as a board feel comfortable voting on this motion?
What is the motion?
Want to make a motion for it?
Sure, I'll repeat what I said.
Okay.
I will make a motion to accept the recommendations of Mr. Wheelock that were presented to us.
Just elaborate on what, specifically, it's really about the mask.
Okay. The recommendation is dedicated to protecting the health and safety of all students of the district, all staff, all visitors, and all members of the local community of Sauquoit Valley. Both the CDC and New York State Education Department have promulgated guidance urging all, regardless of vaccination status, to wear masks indoors and on school property. Whereas the Oneida County Health Department has advised all people, regardless of their vaccination status, to wear masks when indoors and on school property. And until further notice, which we hope is soon, anyone, including students, staff, and visitors, regardless of their vaccination status, is required to wear a mask when indoors on school property unless they're medically unable to do so. This resolution will take place immediately. Is that sufficient?
Sure.
Okay.
I need a second, please. Jim? All those in favor?
Isn't there discussion?
Oh. Yep.
So I agree with the motion. I would just ask if I could amend it somehow to add. Yeah, I should turn this on, I'm sorry.
Here, Todd.
I got it.
No, take a look at that.
But I
know what to ask. I would like it amended to say that our reopening policy would be revisited in the first month of the school in order to possibly revise, change, whatever it may be, so that It is not just a blanket statement that this is what our reopening plan is, and then gets pushed on the back burner. I would like to, in the motion, that the administration, community, and staff, and Board of Education would revisit our current plan that if it is approved tonight. I don't know if I have to ask the person that made the motion if they're comfortable with that amendment, or.
We do, and then the person is second.
So Mr. Nicotero, I'm asking if you are okay if we add on to your motion that we're gonna let our community know that this plan, if approved, will be revisited within the first month of the school year. Well, school starts on the 7th, I think, right? Isn't the Tuesday after, so it's the 6th or the 7th, one of the days. So, by October 1st, if we can just say by October 1st.
Will be reviewed by October 1st? When's the first meeting in October?
Usually probably the second week of October.
Right, but my hope would be though that we're gonna get, before a report came to our level at the board, I would like the staff, the community, the administration, somehow, as they stated, to get some input from the community about how the current plan is going and possible revisions. And then a report coming in, you said the 12th, Murray? And October 12th, coming to the board of where we are, what are the recommendations out there, and maybe any possible changes. No promises or anything, but I think our community needs to know that this is not gonna be pushed to the back burner, it's gonna be right on the front burner, and we're gonna get input from the community and staff and our administration.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Jim, can you accept that?
Yeah.
You still second the motion?
Absolutely, and I think that's built right into the plan. When I read it, there was lots of flexibility in the plan for adjusting to the circumstances as things change.
There was, just wasn't a timeline on it.
Yeah.
Yes, there was.
It says until further notice, but now you've got a date on it. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't see.
All right then. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I thought you said opposed.
All those opposed?
Hold on one second,
Oh,
hold on,
sorry.
Mike.
Oh, sorry, Mike. Forget about
No,
me.
I'm sorry, the
What?
Wi-Fi extension. We can individually ask, it's confusing when it's all in favor and everyone just, can we say?
Yeah, do you want to do a roll call? Would you like to do a roll call vote?
Sure.
We can do a roll call vote if that's what you're happy with. Sure, okay. All right. Go ahead, Mike, go ahead.
I'm a no.
You're a no, okay.
I'm a yes.
Mr. Deaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Kentile?
No.
Ron, Mr. Fratelli?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotero?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay. Okay. Motion approved. All right. I'm sorry, what was it supposed to be?
Mr. Sacco, you want to know
Oh,
Mr.
So
Sacco?
I'll read it.
Yes.
Mike Sacco was a no, Tony Nicotero, yes, Jim Deaver, yes, Judy Kentile, no, Ron Fratelli, yes, Don Miller, yes. Todd Nelson, yes, sorry, I forgot that.
Can move into executive session now? Okay. So, thank you everyone for your comments and your feedback. So I will need a motion to go into executive session at 10:14.
So moved.
Second,
Yes.
to discuss a,
Oh, I'm sorry, to discuss negotiations, I apologize.
with the teaching union,
Yep.
Stretch.